The story begins with a boy holding a crown of flowers in his hands. He stands before a group of girls, and one of them confesses her feelings, saying, "I like you." Another girl, Ceres, thanks him. The boy looks serious and unsure of how to respond. The girls then discuss how mature he is for his age, and that he's old enough to get along with their kids. Suddenly, the boy wakes up from his sleep, realizing it was all just a dream. He wonders why he suddenly started dreaming about the past and reflects on how it's been about 10 years since he was part of a hero's party, a group of 5 friends who embarked on a quest to defeat the Demon King. Although their journey has been smooth so far, they haven't been able to return to the village lately. He hopes his friends, especially Shizuko, are doing well. As he gets up and heads downstairs, he worries about Zect, the hero of their group, getting angry at him for being late. When he reaches the others, one of the members of the party, Zect, tells Ceres that he is out of the party. Ceres, the main character, isn't surprised and narrates that he figured this was bound to happen. He acknowledges that while Zect is an amazing leader with great talents and a handsome face, he has one flaw: he's a massive womanizer. This flaw often leads Zect to prioritize love over friendship, which is why Ceres isn't surprised when Zect tells him that he can't come with them anymore. Zect explains that to make it big as a hero, he needs significant achievements, but Ceres is holding him back. Although Zect tries to soften the blow by saying they're still friends, another party member, Mel, agrees with Zect and adds that Ceres can't keep up with them anymore, and staying with them might get him seriously injured or even killed. This betrayal from Mel hurts Ceres deeply because he had always supported her, but now she's choosing Zect over him. Zect suggests that Ceres return to the village and perhaps join a weaker party. Ceres, feeling a mix of frustration and resignation, agrees, thinking to himself that while these guys are amazing, he could still join other S-rank parties or even drop to an A-rank party without much trouble. However, he truly considered Zect a close friend and wishes Zect had been more honest with him. Mel bids Ceres goodbye, and Ceres, holding back his emotions, thanks them and wishes them well before leaving. As he walks away from his former friends, he reflects that while they were important to him, it wasn't in a romantic sense, but more like a father's love for his children. He then reveals a secret he has kept from everyone. He is a transmigrator, someone who has been reincarnated into this world. In his previous life, he was a 42-year-old father, a high-ranking worker at a trading company, and a loving husband and father. Because of his previous life's experiences, everyone around his current age seems like children to him. He admits to himself that in this world, he feels like a gerontophile, someone attracted to older individuals, because people here only live up to around 50 years, and women are considered old by the time they're 17. From his perspective, the people of this world are like pedophiles, which he finds wasteful. Since he died at 42 and is now 14 in this world, he can only see people past their mid-20s as potential romantic partners. Deciding to stop by a place before heading home, Ceres enters a shop and is greeted by a worker who recognizes him as Lord Ceres. The worker is surprised that Ceres, who was part of the hero's party, would come to such a place. Ceres explains that he got kicked out and is now just an adventurer. The worker apologizes for asking, and Ceres requests to see the female slaves of lesser value, specifically household slaves. The worker leads him to a section where these slaves are kept, and Ceres is shocked by the terrible conditions they're living in, comparing them to wild beasts. Among the slaves, Ceres spots a woman who catches his attention. To his surprise, it's Shizuko, his first love and Zect's mother. He can't believe she's in such a place and wonders how she ended up there. The scene shifts, and the dealer tells Ceres that the total price for Shizuko would be 5 silver coins, with 3 additional coins for the slave mark. Ceres is shocked by how cheap she is and questions the dealer, who explains that she's an elderly village woman with multiple children, making this a reasonable price. Ceres realizes that in this world, Shizuko, who is in her 30s, is considered a grandma. He decides to pay with a gold coin and asks the dealer to prepare clothes and a shower for her. The dealer mentions that they only have garments for younger women, which Ceres says will do for now. Shizuko, noticing Ceres staring at her, asks him not to, and he apologizes. He offers to buy her new clothes after they leave, to which she agrees, although she feels guilty for making him buy a grandma like her. After completing the transaction, Ceres and Shizuko head to a shop where she changes into a beautiful dress and asks Ceres how it looks. He compliments her, and they sit on a bench to eat some food. Shizuko then expresses her gratitude to Ceres for buying such a worn-out slave like her, promising to devote herself entirely to him. Ceres tells her that she doesn't need to do all that, but Shizuko insists, reminding him that she's his slave and it's only natural for her to serve him. She starts to cry, and Ceres gently tells her that he'll wait until she calms down before asking her to explain what happened. When she's ready, Shizuko reveals that her husband, Zector, sold her. Ceres is shocked because when Zect was recognized as a hero, he received a huge sum of money, so it makes no sense that Shizuko ended up as a slave. Shizuko explains that Zector became obsessed with women, gambling, and alcohol, and the money quickly disappeared. Despite not criticizing him for spending money on women, when she tried to talk to him about it, he tricked her into going to the city with him, only to sell her to the slave traders. Ceres is horrified by the story and asks why she didn't write to Zect about it. Shizuko explains that Zect loves his father but hates her, so it wouldn't have helped. Ceres remembers that Zect always disliked how serious Shizuko was, and he reflects on how money has changed Zector. Shizuko admits that she's incredibly angry at her husband but feels powerless to do anything about it, believing that he'll burn in hell for his actions. Ceres apologizes for making her relive those painful memories, but Shizuko reassures him, saying that being bought by him made her very happy. Ceres thinks to himself that Shizuko is truly beautiful and tells her that she's not old at all. Shizuko is touched but believes that only Ceres would say such a thing. Ceres remembers how Shizuko always kept smiling and encouraged him when his parents died, making her special to him, like the best woman for the role of mother. He compliments her again, calling her a wonderful woman, to which Shizuko thanks him and offers to cook something delicious for him. Ceres, however, thinks that Shizuko still sees him as nothing more than a kid, and as she realizes that she's now his slave, she asks if there's anything he wants her to do. Ceres, joking but somewhat serious, asks her to be his lover. Shizuko, embarrassed, tells him to stop joking around, reminding him that no one would want a grandma nearly twice his age. Ceres insists that he's serious and even reminds her that he confessed to her when he was a kid. Shizuko, noticing how Ceres has grown taller than her, teases him about all the cute girls he must have after him, especially his childhood friends. Ceres reveals that Zect has already been with all of them, which Shizuko criticizes, saying they have poor taste. Ceres thinks to himself that Zect's mother is criticizing him, but when he insists, Shizuko finally agrees to be his lover until he finds a girl he truly likes. Ceres is happy and thanks her, while Shizuko takes his hand and thanks him in return. They share a moment of mutual understanding and affection, beginning a new chapter in their lives together. It's early morning after a passionate bridal night between Ceres and Shizuko. As dawn breaks, they find themselves lying together. Ceres holds Shizuko's hand and reflects on the night before, realizing that his heart had been pounding so much that he couldn't sleep. He understands that it must have been a huge shock for Shizuko to be sold into slavery, and she had ended up crying all night until she finally fell asleep. As Shizuko wakes up, she greets Ceres with a good morning, and he responds with morning before quickly pulling his hand away, apologizing by saying my bad. Shizuko, noticing his concern, reassures him by saying, "You were holding my hands because I was crying, weren't you? What a kind boy you are." The two of them get up and head outside. Shizuko asks Ceres where they are going, to which he replies, "We're going to have breakfast, then I'm thinking of heading to the guild after." Ceres then explains that it would be more convenient for both of them if Shizuko were treated as an adventurer during their travels. Shizuko agrees, responding with fair point. Ceres then presents breakfast, confident that Shizuko will like it. Shizuko is surprised by how good the breakfast looks and admits that she hasn't had much chance to eat out since getting married. Encouraged by Ceres, she takes a bite and exclaims, "It's delicious." Ceres, pleased by her reaction, says, "Glad to hear that. But to be honest, I prefer your home cooking more." Shizuko responds with a smile, "Do you know? All you have to do is buy the ingredients, and I'll happily cook for you." Ceres agrees enthusiastically, saying, "Then we got a deal." As they enjoy their meal, Ceres reflects on how Shizuko is not only a skilled cook, but also able to handle all the chores, including cleaning. He appreciates her open-mindedness and contrasts her with Mel and the other girls, acknowledging their beauty but noting that they are still children and can't compare to Shizuko. He feels a deep sense of contentment being around her, thinking to himself that she truly is the best. They both share a smile as they enjoy their tea together. After breakfast, Ceres and Shizuko visit another shop. The receptionist greets them warmly, recognizing Ceres, and asks how she can be of service. Ceres requests adventurer registration and an application for a party. The receptionist then inquires if the party is with Shizuko, and upon confirmation, she rudely remarks, "With all due respect, should an old bag like you even be doing this at your age?" And with Lord Sears no less. Shizuko, feeling a bit nervous, responds by acknowledging her age, saying, "Old bag? I guess I'm a grandma already." However, she confidently requests a reinstatement of her status, surprising Sears. Sears, taken aback, asks, "Whoa, hold up, you were an adventurer?" Shizuko reveals that neither her ex-husband nor Zek knew about her past as an adventurer because she quit before getting married. She kept it a secret due to their pride. The receptionist explains that they need to check the blood registry and asks if they can draw some blood from Shizuko. As they prepare for this, another person arrives and apologizes for the receptionist's behavior, asking if Shizuko is returning to work. Shizuko confirms that she's considering it, and the man, now identified as the guild master Belder, jokes with her about her old nickname. Sears is stunned by the unfolding story, while Shizuko asks Belder if it's fine to reinstate her status. Belder agrees, saying that they won't oppose the return of the black-haired healer. Sears, increasingly surprised, asks what the title means. Belder explains that Shizuko was a master healer far above the rest. Shizuko casually reveals that she was once an S-rank adventurer, which leaves Sears in awe. He reflects on how Shizuko is not only family-oriented and open-minded, but also incredibly strong. However, he wonders how someone so powerful could have been enslaved so easily. Belder informs Shizuko that due to her time away from the field, he can't give her back her S rank. Shizuko is fine with that, and Belder excuses himself, leaving Sally, the receptionist, to finish the process. Sally quickly apologizes, and Shizuko reassures her that it's okay. Sally then shows them the available quests, which leaves Sears in shock. Shizuko selects a quest to slay an earth dragon, surprising Sears. Sally comments that the earth dragon is the weakest of dragons, but still not something one would normally take on alone, indicating that Shizuko's S-rank status was well-deserved. Sears, concerned for Shizuko's safety, asks if she's really coming along, and Shizuko confidently replies that she is. Sears, not wanting to put her in danger, agrees but insists that he fights alone while she stays back and watches. Shizuko then suggests heading back to the inn to borrow the kitchen so she can prepare lunch. As they walk, Sears expresses his surprise at learning she was an amazing adventurer. Shizuko then reveals that she wasn't alone, explaining that she teamed up with the mothers of Lita, Mel, and Maria. Shizuko recounts how they were all skilled adventurers, but as a party of only women, they often attracted the attention of strange men. They handled these men one by one, but once they reached a certain age, no one dared approach them anymore. Sears remarks that after that, Shizuko became an ordinary village girl and got married. Shizuko confirms this, and Sears then asks why she allowed herself to become a slave and didn't struggle. Shizuko admits that she let her guard down, not expecting her husband to drug her from behind. She declares that Zector, her betrayer, will pay for his actions when they meet again. As they reach their destination, Sears suggests stopping for lunch. Shizuko agrees and prepares the meal, feeding Sears and asking how it tastes. Sears responds that it's really good, like the taste of home, but insists that he's not a kid anymore and can eat by himself. After finishing the meal, Sears thanks her for the food and gets ready for action. They arrive at a place where Sears senses something strange and suddenly sees a large dragon. He quickly tells Shizuko to get back as the dragon growls at them. The dragon attacks, but Sears swiftly defends, casting wind magic and jumping to slice the dragon's neck in one swift move, killing it. Shizuko, however, alerts him to another threat. The ground cracks open, and a large creature with stone armor emerges, hurling fire at Sears. Shizuko rushes in, using her magical power to create a holy wall that blocks the attack. Sears is amazed by her power, but Shizuko apologizes for intervening. Sears notes that this creature is no ordinary earth dragon, but a superior rock dragon. Shizuko asks what they should do, and Sears confidently responds that they will fight. Sears uses his magic to freeze the dragon and then, with a powerful attack, cuts its neck, killing it in one blow. He then suggests putting the dragon's heads into a dimensional bag, and they head back to Belder. Sears asks Belder to assess the dragons, and Sally, startled by their size, tells them to take the heads to the warehouse. Belder is surprised to see a rock dragon and asks how they managed to hunt it. Sears explains that he jumped at it, slashed its neck, and it dropped dead. Shizuko is pleased with their success, remarking that they've earned quite a bit. Sears then reminds her that he asked her to stay back and watch, to which Shizuko replies that she was worried about him getting hurt, so she jumped in to protect him. Sears, now determined, tells Shizuko that he's not a child anymore and vows to be the one to protect her. Shizuko blushes at his words, and Sears thinks to himself about the heartbeat that was lying deep inside of Shizuko. Shizuko is lost in thought while working. Her mind drifts back to a conversation with Sears, where he suggested they pretend to be lovers. She reflects on the meaning of this and thinks to herself that pretending means only acting like his lover until Sears finds someone he truly likes. Despite her age, she feels her heart racing like a teenager in love. She convinces herself that an older woman like her shouldn't hope for anything more, and as she stands by the window, she reasons that Sears must just be lonely. Meanwhile, Sears returns home, holding a gift in his hand, and thinks to himself that he hopes Shizuko will like it. He enters the house and greets Shizuko, who notices he's back earlier than usual. Sears explains that he finished his work early because he wanted to see her, which makes Shizuko happy. Sears is pleased, thinking that her presence truly revitalizes him. He compares her to Maria, the saint, but concludes that Shizuko is the one who truly deserves the title of saint. Noticing something, Shizuko asks if anything is wrong, and Sears admits that he was just speechless at how beautiful she is. Shizuko, though flattered, brushes it off, calling herself a grandma, and admits she feels a little embarrassed since she's not used to being called beautiful. Sears insists she's not a grandma, maybe more like an auntie, which surprises and delights Shizuko. She playfully acknowledges that he sure knows how to make an old granny happy. Sears, however, is serious and tells her she's an incredible beauty, asking her not to call herself a grandma so often. Shizuko agrees to be more careful with her words. Sears then pulls out a large bouquet of roses and gives it to Shizuko, who is surprised and grateful. He also reveals that he bought a cake and suggests they eat some. Shizuko, seeing the cake, agrees that it looks delicious, but suggests they have it after dinner, reasoning that if they eat sweets first, they won't finish their meal. Sears agrees and thinks to himself that there's one more thing he wants to give her but decides it's not the right time yet. When Shizuko notices his peculiar expression and asks about it, Sears brushes it off, saying he was just reminiscing about how she used to tell him and Zek the same thing when they were kids. Later, they go for a walk in the night air, and Shizuko remarks how nothing beats the feeling of the night breeze. She thanks Sears for everything he did that day, noting that no one has ever treated her so nicely. Curious, she asks why he's doing all this since it's not even a special occasion like an anniversary. Sears then reveals that he has one more gift for her and hands her a small box. Shizuko opens it to find a beautiful necklace inside. Sears thinks to himself that in this world, giving someone a necklace is the equivalent of giving a ring in his previous world. Shizuko hesitates, saying she can't accept the gift, but Sears asks if she knows the significance of giving a necklace to a girl. Shizuko acknowledges that she does, and she begins to think that if she accepts it now, Sears might regret it someday. However, Sears confesses that he truly loves her and that there's no one better than her. He wants to be the closest person to her and see her angelic smile now and forever. Shizuko, taken aback, asks if he's really sure about this and if he won't regret it later. Sears reassures her, hugging her tightly, and insists that he won't regret it because she's the first person he's ever loved in this world. Shizuko finally gives in, saying he wins, and accepts the necklace. She puts it on and asks Sears how it looks, to which he responds that it looks amazing on her. The scene then shifts to Shizuko taking a shower. As she bathes, her thoughts race. She realizes she can't run away from this anymore and reflects on how serious Sears must be to give her a necklace. She thinks about how no one has ever treated her like this before, especially not her ex-husband, Zector, who used to sleep around with other women and never bought her anything. She recalls how Sears has always told her that he likes her and wants to marry her since he was little, but she never took it seriously. She rationalized it as Sears being lonely since he lost his mom early on, and she assumed he was just being mature for his age, saying the same things to Haruka, Sayo, and Misaki as well. But now she realizes that Sears was serious all along, and she contemplates what it means for tonight, wondering if she can satisfy a young man full of energy after 10 years of being out of practice. Finally, Shizuko decides she shouldn't keep Sears waiting any longer. She goes to him and apologizes for the wait, telling him she's done bathing and that he can go in now. Sears agrees, and as Shizuko watches him, she thinks to herself that there's no turning back anymore. Shizuko lying in bed, deep in thought, she quietly speaks to herself, asking for forgiveness from someone named Maruna. Just then, Ceres enters the room, apologizing for keeping her waiting. As Ceres approaches her, Shizuko hesitantly admits that it's been a while since she last did something like this and asks him to be gentle with her. She then considers in her mind that it might be his first time as well. As she starts to ask Ceres if he knows how to proceed, he interrupts her by initiating the moment himself. They both get closer, and Shizuko is taken aback by how skilled he seems, wondering if he might be too good at this. Ceres praises her appearance, which makes Shizuko feel bashful and requests that he not gaze too intently. Despite her embarrassment, Shizuko recognizes Ceres' thoughtfulness, appreciating his effort to ensure her comfort, which is a new experience for her. At one point, Shizuko feels a little embarrassed and asks Ceres to pause, but he continues to show his affection in his own way, which makes Shizuko initially hesitant. However, she soon begins to appreciate the care and attention he's giving her. She reflects on how she always knew he loved her, but this moment makes her realize just how much. Ceres then embraces her tightly, sharing a deep, heartfelt connection. Afterward, Ceres mentions that he's not quite ready to end the moment, which surprises Shizuko. She decides to take a more active role, suggesting they try something different. As they continue spending time together, Shizuko can't help but think about how deeply connected they've become and how important Ceres is to her. The night passes as they enjoy each other's company, strengthening their bond. The next morning, Shizuko wakes up in Ceres' arms. He greets her with a good morning, and she asks if she passed out and fell asleep. Ceres confirms this, adding that he found her so cute that he couldn't help but watch her sleeping face. Shizuko notices the time and remarks that it's almost noon, suggesting they get up. However, Ceres grabs her hand and asks if she wants to do it again, which leads them to enjoy more time together. Later in the evening, Shizuko gets dressed and tells Ceres that she's really glad, as a woman, that he wanted to please her. She jokes that he left her drained, to which Ceres apologizes and tells her to rest a bit. Shizuko assures him that it's fine and thanks him. Meanwhile, Ceres wonders if he's always been this obsessed with her. That night, Shizuko prepares dinner, and Ceres is impressed by the meal, praising her skills and even noting that she drew a heart. Shizuko blushes, acknowledging that he knows how to make her happy. Ceres suggests they eat before the food gets cold, and Shizuko agrees. As they eat, Ceres asks what they should do next, and Shizuko replies that whatever he wants to do, she will support and help him. Ceres seems thoughtful, considering that Shizuko is an S-rank adventurer, a rare status held by less than 30 people in the world. He thinks to himself that he would be fine staying with Shizuko as his wife and living a quiet life, but he worries that this could cause trouble with Zect and others because of Zekt's father. Shizuko then suggests that if Ceres is unsure of what to do, they could visit the village, hinting that she'd like to give her ex-husband a little punishment. When she asks if that's okay, Ceres internally debates what she might mean by punishment, but decides he's better off not knowing. He then mentions that he was thinking of returning to Jumuna village to live a quiet life there, and Shizuko agrees, saying they should go back to their hometown. The scenes unfolds in a bustling market where Zect, the hero of the story, is with his party members. Suddenly, Zect realizes that they are out of money and exclaims, "We're out of money?" Mel, another member of the party, responds by asking how so. Another member adds, "Don't ask me," while Maria, yet another party member, speculates, "You don't think Ceres ran away with it, right?" Mel immediately defends Ceres, saying, "Maria, Ceres wouldn't do something like that." Maria then admits, "I'm just kidding." Zect, accepting the situation, states, "It's what it is. Let's go to the guild." As the scene shifts, the group arrives at the guild. Zect inquires, "You haven't received the money from the church?" The guild representative confirms, "Yes, that's right." Zect then suggests, "We'll go talk it out with the church then." However, the guild person reminds him, "Excuse me, Lord Zect, you have not submitted your paperwork." Confused, Zect asks, "Paperwork? What are you talking about?" The guild person explains that the paperwork is a report detailing their expenses and achievements. Zect, puzzled, asks his party members if they've ever filled out such forms. The guild person mentions that the documents they received in the past had Zekt's signature, but were filled out by Lord Ceres. Zect, surprised, remembers when Ceres had asked him to sign some documents and realizes that it was for the church paperwork. Zect then wonders if these documents are really that important. The guild person offers Zect a smaller sum of money, explaining, "Without the paperwork, that's all I can give you." Zect decides that Mel should handle the paperwork from now on because she is the smartest among them as a sage. Mel reluctantly agrees, though she complains about the difficulty of the task. Later, during dinner, Zect criticizes Lita's cooking, saying that the food tastes like shit. Lita responds sharply, "If you don't like my food, let Maria do it. Better yet, do it yourself." Maria chimes in, admitting that Lita cooks better than she does. Zect agrees, joking that everything Maria cooks turns into charcoal. The group begins to reminisce about Siri's cooking, expressing their longing for his omelets, hamburgers, and pasta. Zect then decides they should eat out the next day, since Siri's food is only available in high-end restaurants. A few days later, the group is seen struggling with their dirty clothes and unkempt appearances. Zect notices that while Maria's and Nell's hair is a mess, Lita's hair looks fine. Lita explains that she simply ties it back, but also mentions that Siri's used to take care of the other two's hair. Without Siri's, their hair has become a mess because they can't manage on their own. Frustrated, Zect exclaims, "Siri's again." He then realizes that they can't continue living like this, constantly getting dirtier and running out of money. Zect suggests that they go to the church for help, but Maria vehemently objects, saying that the church leads a frugal life and rarely eats meat. She exclaims that they would have to take care of themselves if they went there and that they're better off as they are now. Zect tries to calm her down, deciding not to go to the church after all. Maria then suggests they earn money by going to the guild, but Zect dismisses the idea, explaining that they receive money from the country and the church, so they're not supposed to go out and hunt monsters. Frustrated by all the formalities, chores, and odd jobs that Siri's used to handle, Zect wonders why things ended up like this. The scene shifts to Shizuko, who is happily living with Siri's. Siri's suggests that after eating, they should go earn some money and then leave the city. Noticing Shizuko's good mood, Siri's asks, "You seem to be in a good mood." Shizuko, feeling affectionate, rests her head on Siri's shoulder and thinks about how Siri's takes care of her, washing her hair with a special potion and combing it as he dries it. She reflects on how her son and his partners ungratefully kicked Siri's out without even thanking him. She feels that if her friend Haruka saw this, she would slap her daughter, and even Shizuko herself wishes she could give Zect a good scolding. Shizuko is overjoyed by the comfortable life she now shares with Siri's, who treats her with kindness and love. She thinks to herself that if both Zect and Siri's were in danger, she'd save Siri's without hesitation because she's his woman now. Later, Siri's demonstrates his strength by defeating many monsters, impressing Shizuko. Siri's explains that he had to earn money on his own while helping the hero's party. Shizuko is shocked and embraces him, acknowledging how tough it must have been for him. She asks about the strongest monsters he has hunted, and Siri's mentions dragons and wyverns. Shizuko questions if Siri's is truly weaker than Zect, and Siri's admits he's not sure. Shizuko contemplates the great power that heroes receive, and how Siri's seems much stronger than expected. Siri's and Shizuko head to the guild to report their success. Sally, the receptionist, informs Siri's that he is still registered as a member of the hero party, despite leaving and forming a new group with Shizuko. Sally apologizes for the mistake, explaining that she created a separate force for the hero's party rather than making a new registry for Siri's and Shizuko. Sally reassures them that this won't affect them and that they can continue using the hero party's privileges. She then grants Siri's the title of Dragon Slayer, which excites Shizuko. When Shizuko learns that only Siri's has earned the Dragon Slayer title, she feels proud, especially since Zect has only dealt with lesser monsters like wyverns. Sally, shocked to discover that Shizuko is Zect's mother, apologizes profusely, but Shizuko brushes it off, saying that she's now just Siri's lover. Sally is puzzled and asks Siri's to explain. After understanding the situation, Sally jokingly suggests that Siri's and Shizuko should have a guild marriage, which would officially register their relationship. Though initially embarrassed, Shizuko agrees after Siri's reassures her, and they get married at the guild. The chapter concludes with Sally congratulating them on their wedding, and Siri's generously telling everyone to drink to their heart's content for the rest of the day. Shizuko, filled with happiness, reflects on a promise she made with others in the village and how she plans to keep it. She remembers the vow they took, all for one and one for all, and feels confident that Siri's won't have any trouble with 4 wives. Shizuko and Siri's arrive at Jamuna village, and Siri's tells Shizuko that they've made it to the place where he grew up, the village that took care of him after his parents died. Shizuko seems a bit worried, which doesn't surprise Siri's because this is also the village where Zector, the man who sold Shizuko off, lives. They go to a house where Siri's greets the chief, who is surprised to see him and asks if he wasn't on a journey with the heroes. Shizuko also greets the chief, who is shocked to see her alive since Zector had told everyone she was dead. This makes Shizuko sad, but when Siri's offers to handle the conversation, She insists that she can speak with the chief too. Sears explains what Zector did to Shizuko, and the chief is outraged, calling Zector a low-life criminal who he would have punished severely if he were still in the village. Shizuko is surprised to learn that Zector isn't there anymore because the feudal lord took him away for not paying taxes. Relieved, Shizuko remarks on how things have turned out, admitting she was hoping to get a hit on Zector herself, but is satisfied knowing he's in a worse situation. Sears reflects on the situation, noting that Zector's life is indeed over. Even though Sears can't forgive Zector for what he did to Shizuko, he does have some good memories with him, like when they went fishing together. It's better that things ended this way without the need for revenge. The chief then jokes about how happy Shizuko seems with her new husband, to which she agrees, almost scared by how happy she is. The chief praises Sears for following through on his childhood declaration to marry Shizuko, calling him brave. Sears blushes, hands the chief a bag of gold coins, and suggests they buy themselves a favor. The chief expresses his gratitude and invites them to rest after their long journey, teasing them about possibly wanting to get even more tired now that they're married. This makes Sears and Shizuko blush, and they return home. Back at their house, Shizuko feels content and happy, resolving to forget about her past resentments. Sears, sensing her relief, noticing her sense of relief, helps her with her clothing and starts to approach her in a very personal manner. The night passes with the couple enveloped in their love for each other. The next morning, Sears jokes about how they didn't get a break the previous day, and Shizuko, noting the time, playfully remarks that she's happy to have someone who desires her so much, despite her age. They decide to visit Kazuma, the owner of the only set meal restaurant in the village, where they can also meet Haruka. At the restaurant, Haruka warmly greets them, and Shizuko shares how Sears rescued her, which earns him a playful punch from Haruka. Sears pretends to be in pain, which makes Haruka laugh. Shizuko, noticing their sibling-like bond, jokes about being a little jealous even though Sears is her husband now. Shizuko then teasingly asks Sears if he likes Haruka, hinting at his romantic feelings for her. Sears admits that Haruka was his second love after Shizuko, but he considers her a sister now and doesn't want to ruin their sibling-like relationship. Shizuko, however, encourages him not to give up hope, suggesting there might still be a chance. Sears is conflicted, thinking about the implications of intruding on their marriage, but Shizuko seems confident that things could work out amicably. She even suggests that Sears could make a night visit to Haruka, a village tradition with certain rules. Sears is startled by this idea, but Shizuko reassures him that as long as the rules are followed, there's nothing wrong with it. Shizuko eagerly proposes they start practicing the night visit tradition, despite Sears' hesitation and concern for Kazuma. She insists that it's nothing forbidden as long as the rules are respected, urging Sears to follow them strictly. Shizuko and Sears, now married, decide it's time to celebrate. Shizuko suggests they should do something to mark the occasion, and Sears agrees, proposing that they grab some drinks and head back home. Shizuko, smiling at the idea, reminisces about how it's been a long time since she's had a drink. She mentions how she and her friends, Haruka, Sayo, and Misaki, used to drink together. Those gatherings, she recalls, were always lively, with everyone becoming more assertive as the conversation grew rowdy. As the evening progresses, Sears notices that Shizuko might be drinking a bit too much and expresses his concern. Shizuko, however, is simply overwhelmed with happiness and brushes off his concern. Suddenly, she begins to remove her dress in front of him, remarking that it feels unusually hot, especially since it's been a while since she's had this much to drink. She notes how her body feels warm and comfortable. Sears, noticing the change in atmosphere, starts to feel the heat as well, and, in a moment of vulnerability, exclaims that he can't hold back his feelings anymore. Shizuko, sensing his desire, teasingly asks if Sears is after her. The scene is filled with a mix of playful tension and deep affection as their relationship continues to deepen. In this scene, Shizuko is explaining some night rules to Sears, and the conversation is quite specific and important. The rules are, first, the woman must be over 24 or widowed. Second, he must sit on his knees on her right side until she wakes up. Third, he must not speak to her until she speaks to him so as not to startle her. Fourth, he must not shame a woman who has accepted him. Fifth, if she doesn't accept him, he must leave promptly without cursing her. Lastly, if she rejects him, he must give up. Sears, surprised by the rules, responds that they are more lenient than he expected. Shizuko warns him that if he doesn't follow them, he could get into big trouble. Sears then asks if Shizuko's sister, Haruka, might get mad, to which Shizuko replies that while she might, the night visit could make Haruka happy. Sears, confused, asks what she means, and Shizuko casually mentions that she won't be coming home tonight, encouraging Sears to clear his mind and do his best at the night visit. Sears is left thinking about how strange it is that he's about to do this with another woman, with Shizuko's support no less. He's conflicted because he just recently married Shizuko, but he wonders if there's a chance that this could work. Despite knowing it feels wrong, Sears decides that if there's an opportunity to have both his beloved Shizuko and Haruka with him, he's going to take it. That night, Sears sneaks out and quietly goes to Haruka's room, where he sits by her side, waiting for her to wake up. He's surprised by how difficult it is to sit still, and his legs quickly go numb. As he watches Haruka sleep, she suddenly wakes up and asks him what he's doing there. Haruka then notices that he's sitting on her right side and asks if he understands what that means. Sears stumbles to respond, but before he can say much, Haruka gets angry and slaps him hard, accusing him of making fun of her with inexcusable jokes. Haruka, still furious, kicks Sears and demands that he explain himself. Sears, trying to calm her down, admits that he really likes her, but Haruka slaps him again and grabs him, angrily asking if he means as siblings. She's hurt and starts crying, saying even she gets hurt by such tasteless jokes. Sears tries to apologize, but before he can explain further, Kazuma, Haruka's husband, bursts in, demanding to know what's going on. Kazuma is shocked to see Sears there and demands an explanation. He warns Sears that depending on his answer, they might stop being siblings. Haruka, still angry, asks what Sears was thinking. Sears, embarrassed and ashamed, admits that he likes Haruka, but had given up because she was with Kazuma. Haruka is outraged, but Kazuma, trying to calm her, tells her to stay quiet because this is an important conversation between men. Kazuma then asks Sears if he couldn't give up on the woman he liked, just like how he feels about Haruka. Sears tries to say it's impossible, but Kazuma urges him to be honest about his feelings. Sears finally admits that he was jealous of how happy Kazuma and Haruka seemed together, which made him give up on her. Kazuma acknowledges Sears' feelings and says he wants both Sears and Haruka to be happy. But he reminds Sears that while Haruka looks young, she's actually the same age as his late mother, Muruna, and even though she's Lita's mother, he still asks if Sears loves Haruka despite that. Haruka, confused and upset, asks what Kazuma is talking about, while Sears firmly states that age doesn't matter in love and that he doesn't want to give up on Haruka. Kazuma challenges Sears, asking if he can still say that he'll love Haruka even when she's much older. Sears insists that he can, and Kazuma asks Haruka what she thinks. Haruka, emotional and confused, questions why Sears would love her, reminding him that she even changed his diapers when he was a baby. She asks if he really thinks it's not weird given their history. Kazuma then points out that when Sears turns 30, he'll be the same age as Kazuma is now, while Haruka will be in her mid-40s. He bluntly says that she'll be an old hag by then and asks Sears if he still wants to stay by her side and continue to love her. Sears, without hesitation, declares that he will still love her despite everything. Kazuma, seemingly satisfied, asks Haruka for her opinion. Haruka, overwhelmed, is unsure of what to say. Kazuma provocatively asks Sears to prove his feelings by displaying his affection for Haruka in a deeply personal way in front of him. Haruka is horrified and confused, questioning whether Kazuma is serious. Kazuma, undeterred, urges Sears to show him his love if it's real. Sears, surprisingly agreeing, promises Kazuma that he'll do it, and they shake hands to seal the promise. Haruka, stunned and scared, can't believe what's about to happen. She thinks to herself, wondering if she and Sears are really going to do this in front of Kazuma. Now the scene unfolds on a night that feels heavy and uncertain, as if it's teetering on the edge of something significant. Sears helps Haruka up from the ground, his movements careful and deliberate. Haruka, still in a state of uncertainty, wonders aloud if they are really going to go through with this. Her voice is filled with doubt, and she asks Sears to wait for a second. Meanwhile, Sears' thoughts are racing. His feelings for Shizuko haven't wavered at all, and he believes the same could be said for her. In a moment of determination, Sears takes Haruka's hand and expresses his feelings directly. He tells her that he wants her, calling her big sis. Haruka, clearly flustered by his words, immediately pulls her hand away, telling him to let go. Sears notices her flushed face and teases her about it, commenting that her face is beet red. Haruka, unable to hide her frustration, snaps back, asking whose fault he thinks it is. Sears, with a playful tone, feigns innocence, suggesting that she tell him whose fault it is. This response only makes Haruka more frustrated, leading her to call him a dummy and telling him that he already knows the answer. Suddenly, in a moment of impulsive emotion, Haruka leans in and kisses Sears. The kiss is brief but intense, leaving both of them breathless. Feeling encouraged, Sears places his hand gently on Haruka's waist, noticing how she reacts and sensing she feels a bit unsure. Haruka, feeling a little shy, asks Sears to not focus too much on how she looks. Kazuma has been silently watching the entire scene unfold. He remains quiet, his presence unnoticed. Sears, trying to lighten the mood, tells Haruka that she looks really pretty. Haruka, embarrassed by the compliment, responds by saying that he doesn't have to say everything he thinks. Despite her words, there's a softness in her tone. Sears, feeling a strong urge, pulls Haruka closer so they are very close to each other. Haruka, panic rising within her, protests that they can't do this because Kazuma is watching and doing so would be wrong. Sears asks her if she wants him to stop, and Haruka, on the verge of tears, calls him a dummy again, but the heat of the moment takes over. In a gentle moment, Sears pulls Haruka closer, and she feels a strong sense of connection with him. The feeling is intense, and she becomes fully engaged, her thoughts becoming clearer as she experiences the depth of the moment. Sears gives Haruka a warm hug. They share a soft and friendly peck, showing a deeper sense of care and closeness than before. As they pull apart, Haruka's thoughts begin to race. She reflects on how she should be taking on a more guiding role, almost like an older sibling to Sears, yet she finds herself drawn to him more deeply with each passing moment. Sears, feeling that an important moment is near, senses a strong urge. At the same time, Haruka starts to feel something new and questions if his feelings for her are real. Overwhelmed, she asks him to show his care for her. Sears responds sincerely, confirming his feelings. Happy and reassured, Haruka enjoys the moment, feeling that everything is just right. Sears is overwhelmed by Haruka's cuteness, his heart pounding in his chest. But their moan is interrupted by Kazuma's voice, asking if Haruka is done. Kazuma's voice breaks through the haze, bringing them back to reality. Haruka, slightly startled, acknowledges that she is. Sears, now realizing how absorbed he had been, feels embarrassed and apologizes for getting carried away. But instead of scolding them, Kazuma responds calmly, expressing his relief that they seem happy. His words surprise Sears, who hadn't expected such a reaction. Kazuma goes on to explain that he and Haruka aren't married anymore, they're just good friends now. He reveals that they've been separated since their daughter, Lita, was born. Haruka admits that she once thought about meeting someone new, but eventually she resigned herself to thinking that those days were over. That's when she started thinking about Sears. Kazuma adds that he suspects Sears is still in love with Haruka, though Haruka dismisses the idea, recalling it as something Sears said as a kid. But Kazuma presses on, suggesting that Sears might still feel the same way. Kazuma then reveals a surprising fact. He had told Haruka that if Sears still liked her, he'd hand her over to him. Though he never thought it would actually happen, Kazuma admits he's still having a hard time believing it. He reminds Haruka that even when Sears was just a 5-year-old, he looked at her with the eyes of a man. Sears, blushing deeply, admits that what Kazuma says is true, though he finds it a little embarrassing to confess. Kazuma turns to Haruka, his expression serious yet kind. He explains that he has spent many years in memories with Haruka and considers her a precious childhood friend. That's why he thinks it's fine as she lives with Sears. He admits that even after their separation, he didn't want her to end up with someone who would make her unhappy. But now he is sure that Sears can make Haruka happier than he could, and he leaves Haruka in Sears' hands. Sears, feeling a deep sense of responsibility, agrees wholeheartedly. Haruka, trying to lighten the mood, teases Sears by mentioning that he might be able to get up to 4 wives, reminding him of an old promise. Sears, caught off guard, thinks to himself how outrageous her suggestion is, but quickly shifts the conversation, pointing out how difficult it will be to run the restaurant without Haruka around. Kazuma agrees but reassures Sears not to worry. He jokes about buying a young slave from the royal capital to act as a maid and run a flirting cafe. Sears offers to give Kazuma some money to help out, but Kazuma declines, saying it's not necessary. Sears insists that it's only right for the younger brother to help his big brother accomplish his dreams. Kazuma, touched by Sears' gesture, thanks him. As they leave the house together, Series takes Haruka's hand and makes a promise to Kazuma that he will make Haruka happy. Kazuma responds with encouragement, urging Series to do his best. As they walk away, Haruka suddenly wonders aloud where Shizuko is, as she wants to talk to her. Series informs her that Shizuko won't be returning home tonight. Meanwhile, Shizuko is shown sitting alone in a pub, drinking beer and hoping that things are going well with Haruka. Series and Haruka continue walking, eventually arriving at a familiar spot. Haruka, recognizing the place, remarks how it brings back memories. She recalls how she used to take care of Series and the other kids when the restaurant was closed, noting that she didn't have much to take care of with him. She observes how much Series has changed, and he simply acknowledges her observation. Haruka asks if this nostalgic place was all Series wanted to show her, but he has something more on his mind. He explains that now that Kazuma isn't with them, there's something he wanted to tell her once they were finally alone. He expresses that while they've made a lot of childhood memories together, from now on he wants to make memories with her as a couple. Haruka, taken aback by his words, playfully calls him a dummy and questions why he's trying to act all cool. Despite her teasing, Haruka hugs Series tightly and kisses him once more. Realizing it's getting late, she suggests they should head back, but Series, still holding her in his arms, says he wants to stay just a little longer. Haruka, content and comfortable, agrees, sitting with him as they enjoy the peaceful moment together. The hero's party members are in a church, dealing with the stresses and frustrations of their responsibilities. Mel expresses her exhaustion, saying that she can't take it anymore because the work is never ending. Zek tries to calm her down, reminding her that she's already exempt from other duties. However, Mel is still frustrated because she has to write periodic reports to the church, detailing their plans and purchases. She wonders how Sears managed to handle these tasks before, and then angrily mentions how the church criticizes her if her handwriting is bad or if they don't have clear plans. Lida, another member of the group, asks Zek if he can handle the laundry because she needs to maintain her sword. Zek refuses, saying he doesn't want to wash women's underwear, which prompts Lida to remark that he has it easy. She explains that her sword requires constant maintenance, unlike Zek's holy sword, which just needs to be wiped clean. Lida recounts how she almost died recently because her sword wasn't sharp enough to cut off an ogre's arm. Meanwhile, Maria is lying on a bed reading a book. Zek tries to get her to help, but she immediately refuses, saying she doesn't want to move. Frustrated, Zek thinks that the most important person in the hero's party isn't the saint, the sage, or the sword saint, but Ceres. He then asks the group if they think they can convince Ceres to return to the party. Mel wishes they could because they're in trouble without him. Lida emphasizes how no one is better at maintaining swords than Ceres, and Maria adds that Ceres was the only one she could trust with shopping since he didn't buy unnecessary things. The group agrees that they need to bring Ceres back. Lida then brings up the issue of what compensation Ceres might ask for in return for coming back. Zek is confused, and Lida reminds him that they treated Ceres cruelly by kicking him out of the group, despite all the help he provided. She specifically recalls how Zek took off the necklace Ceres gave to Mel and replaced it with his own, making sure Ceres saw this before they expelled him from the group. Maria angrily points out that this action obviously hurt Ceres deeply, and she challenges Zek to imagine how he would feel if the same thing were done to him. Zek reflects on this and realizes that if he were in Ceres' shoes, he would have punched someone for doing that. Despite everything, Ceres never stopped being kind to them. Mel, Lida, and Maria discuss how they need to make up for what they did to Ceres, and Zek thinks about how they took away Ceres' woman in place in the group. He wonders if he should give Mel back to Ceres, but quickly dismisses this idea, realizing that it wouldn't be enough. Zek is left confused and troubled, unsure of what he should do. The scene then shifts to Shizuko, who is sitting in a pub with her friends, discussing her son Ceres. She reflects on how much he's grown and wonders when he became the person he is now. Her friends sympathize with her, acknowledging that she's been through a lot, but Shizuko insists that she's happier than ever now. Misaki and Seo, her friends, are amazed that Shizuko ended up marrying Ceres and tease her about seducing a younger man. Misaki finds it hard to believe, but Seo remarks that Ceres has always been in love with older women, and despite his age, he's always acted maturely. The conversation turns to Ceres' feelings for Shizuko. Seo recalls how even as a child, Ceres declared his love for her, and she believes he meant it as a romantic confession, not just as a motherly affection. Shizuko agrees, saying that while Ceres was a strange kid, she always saw him as a perfect son. However, Sayo points out that this is where Shizuko started to fall for him. She then bluntly asks Shizuko about their relationship in bed, to which Shizuko responds that Ceres is like a beast who doesn't let her go until the sun comes up, making her incredibly happy. Misaki and Sayo find this hard to believe, especially since they both have been neglected by their own husbands for years. They suspect Shizuko might be lying to brag about her happiness, but Shizuko insists that she's telling the truth. She reminds them of their promise to share their joys and sorrows, and even shows them the kiss mark Ceres left on her as proof. The chapter ends with Shizuko revealing that she sent Ceres to Haruka's house for a night visit. Despite Haruka being in a good relationship, Shizuko explains that while Kazuma, Haruka's partner, is a nice person, he doesn't seem to be interested in Haruka as a woman. On the other hand, Ceres does see them as women, which is why Shizuko asks her friends to abandon their husbands and go back to being women again. Sayo and Misaki are shocked by this suggestion, questioning if such a thing is even possible. Misaki warns Shizuko that if she's lying, there will be consequences, but Shizuko stands by her words, asking them to consider returning to their lives as adventurers and helping her out. The scenes unfolds with Tea Party taking a serious turn as Shizuko reveals her true intentions. Sayo, feeling a bit puzzled, asks what their return to being adventurers has to do with Ceres. Shizuko acknowledges that discussing this might make the conversation more serious. Misaki offers to prepare some tea for everyone, and Shizuko expresses her gratitude, apologizing for using Misaki's place for their gathering. Misaki, always gracious, assures her that it's not a problem as long as it's for them. After the tea is served, Shizuko begins to share her frustrations about her son. Misaki, sensing where this is going, asks if it's because he kicked Ceres out of the party. Shizuko confirms, explaining that even though her son was told to follow the group, they still dumped all the housework and chores on Ceres. Not only that, but Ceres also had to make money for his own living expenses, and despite all of that, they eventually kicked him out, leaving him to fend for himself. Hearing this, both Sayo and Misaki become concerned. Misaki realizes that this was Maria's doing, subjecting Ceres to such hardships, while Sayo contemplates how Mel will need a stern scolding. Shizuko, still deeply troubled, reveals that she's been thinking about what to do and that one of her ideas is for all of them to marry Ceres and leave the village, which would prevent those kids from having a place to return to. Sayo, shocked, clarifies if Shizuko is seriously suggesting they divorce their husbands to become Ceres' wives. Shizuko confirms this, explaining that she's telling them because of their oath, but also because it's a part of her plan. Misaki admits that if she were to leave, her husband would probably buy a slave to take on the role of a second wife, leaving Maria without a place. Sayo realizes that the same could happen with her. Shizuko then shifts the conversation, pondering what would happen if Ceres, who was kicked out, was actually stronger and worked harder than the hero. Sayo sees the potential for this to ruin the children's reputation. Misaki catches on, realizing that Shizuko is suggesting they return to adventuring to help Ceres. However, Sayo expresses doubt, wondering if they're still capable at their age. Shizuko, determined, tries to rally them, reminding Sayo of her former glory as the teary-eyed Ice Princess, a name that annoys Sayo. She also mentions Misaki, the Berserk Black Knight, who is equally frustrated by the reminder of her past title. Shizuko then urges them to leave their loveless families and form a new party with Ceres, one filled with love. Sayo, warming to the idea, suggests that Ceres would gladly take them as his wives. Deciding to take action, Shizuko declares that they should get going. Sayo, curious, asks where they're headed, and Shizuko enigmatically replies that she's going to show them proof. The scene shifts to them arriving at Shizuko's house. Sayo, confused, asks if this is just Shizuko's home. Shizuko hushes her, telling them to keep quiet as they approach the bedroom, where the sounds of Haruka and Ceres engaging in an intimate moment can be heard. Haruka, breathless, reminds Ceres that they just did it earlier, calling him a dummy. Ceres, driven by his desires, apologizes, admitting he wants more. Haruka, trying to maintain some semblance of control, scolds him to think of the time and place. Despite her advice, Ceres continues to express his emotions. Haruka, understanding the situation, softly reassures him that it's okay to relax and enjoy the moment with her. Shizuko, with a teasing tone, remarks on how intense their activities were, while Sayo admits to feeling a little jealous. Haruka, caught completely off guard, accuses Shizuko of setting them up, but Shizuko simply praises Haruka's sharp intuition, referring to her as the Smiling Ripper Demon, a nickname that confuses Ceres. Sears, still reeling from the situation, questions what's going on. Sayo, inspired by Haruka's boldness, declares that if Haruka can do it, so can she. Misaki, equally pleased, expresses her happiness at seeing how much Sears has grown. Haruka, flustered, tells him to zip it, while Shizuko asks Sears if he could also take Sayo and Misaki as his wives. Sears, though surprised, considers it and admits he would welcome them as his wives, but is hesitant about seeking revenge on Zect and the others. Sears reflects on the past, realizing that while he was angry about being kicked out, he also felt a strong sense of liberation. He explains that he never harbored thoughts of revenge and was simply following orders to protect their children. Now that he's out, he's happy with his life and doesn't see a reason to hold a grudge. However, the mothers are not satisfied. They insist that bad children deserve scolding, with Haruka adding that even if Sears forgives, she cannot forgive Lida. Sayo and Misaki express similar sentiments towards their daughters, urging Sears not to forgive them. Feeling overwhelmed, Sears agrees to consider punishing them, though he's not entirely sure how to go about it. The story then shifts to a few days later, where Sayo's husband is working on the farm. He demands that Sayo bring him some tea, which she does, but with a thought of defiance. She realizes that today, Sears is coming to take her away, and mentally bids farewell to her life as a housework slave, eagerly anticipating her new future with Sears. Sears standing outside Sayo's house, thinking about how he's there to visit Sayo's husband, Kato, because he plans to take Sayo with him. He knocks on the door, and Sayo welcomes him, saying that Kato is waiting inside. Sears admits that he's nervous, and when he enters, he finds Kaito sitting there drinking juice. Kaito, sounding annoyed, tells Sears to sit down, calling him an idiot, and Sears wonders if he's actually welcome there. Kaito then suggests they start with a drink, and Sears thanks him. Kaito comments that Sears has grown up well and looks like a man now, but Sears credits Kaito for helping him get this far. Kaito dismisses this, saying he only taught Sears how to work the fields and take care of livestock, while Sears learned adventure skills on his own. Sears insists that Kaito deserves credit, but Kaito downplays it, saying he's just a stubborn father that even his daughter hates. Sears reflects that, compared to bosses from his previous life, Kaito's stubbornness is actually kind of endearing, but he doesn't think it's just sentimentalism. Since he was an orphan, this village was his only way to live, which he finds a bit heartbreaking. Sears tells Kaito that the people of the village are like his parents, and Kaito responds by getting to the point. He knows why Sears is there, and it's about Sayo. Kaito says that if Sears wants Sayo, she's his. He then recounts how Sayo didn't have any good memories of being with him because of how his father treated her, pressuring her to produce a fine hair. After Kaito's father passed away, Kaito admits he also treated Sayo poorly, so this outcome of her leaving him is only natural. Sears thinks to himself that although Kaito talks a lot, he never saw him being physically abusive to Sayo. They just didn't know how to connect with each other. Kaito then says that since Sears has been after Sayo since he was young, he'll allow it. Sears offers him a bag full of gold coins, but Kaito refuses, saying he's set with the money he got from Mel's arrangement. Kaito had wanted Sears to marry Mel, but since that's not possible anymore, he's getting Sears his wife instead of his daughter. Sayo apologizes to Kaito, but Kaito tells her that she doesn't need to apologize. He's the one who should be sorry for not protecting her from his father. Sears asks Kaito what he plans to do now, and Kaito responds with a laugh, saying that once this depressing old hag, referring to Sayo, is gone, he's going to get himself some young brides, maybe even some young slaves. Sayo gets annoyed and reminds Kaito that he was just talking about being sorry for what happened. But Kaito brushes it off, saying he does feel bad, but he'd always choose a young woman over an older one like Sayo. He tells Sears to take Sayo away because she's souring his mood. As they leave, Sayo angrily shouts that she hates Kaito, to which Kaito just smirks and tells Sears to take her out of there already. Sayo goes to pack her things, feeling frustrated because she thought she would be the one to break up with Kaito and leave, but it feels more like he kicked her out instead. Sears reassures her that the important thing is that they can now enjoy their new life together. Sayo quickly packs, and as she's finishing up, she spots an old broom. When Sears asks about it, Sayo explains that she used to practice magic with it when she was little. The broom brings back memories, and Sayo suddenly gets an idea, asking Sears if he wants to go for a ride. Sears is surprised and asks if she can fly, and Sayo confirms that she can because she's a wizard. They take off into the sky, with Sears clinging on tightly behind Sayo. Sears is amazed by the experience, noting that even Mel can't fly like this. Sayo explains that while Mel is a sage with powerful spells, she can't control her power well enough to fly. Sears thinks to himself that although he can use a spell called Airwalk to run through the air, it's nothing compared to flying at such high altitudes like Sayo, who was once an S-class adventurer. Her experience is truly on another level. As they continue flying, Sears asks Sayo if she's settled down yet. Sayo reflects on how, after raising her child and living half her life, she thought she would end up sharing a death with Kaito. Given her age, she had resigned herself to that fate, even though Kaito treated her like a servant every day. But after Shizuko told her about Sears, she realized she could finally be free. Although she was a bit angry at the end, she thinks that separating from Kaito was for the best since they didn't really need each other. She adds that this is, of course, assuming Sears doesn't dump her. Sears is quick to reassure her that he would never do that, but then he starts getting nervous as Sayo points out that they're gaining altitude. Sayo leans in close to Sears and whispers in his ear, "Sears, you still hasn't proposed to her." She asks him why he likes her and what part of her he likes, urging him to tell her. Sears gets flustered and nervous, accidentally slapping her on the backside, which causes Sayo to lose her balance on the broom. They both fall from the sky, getting caught in the branches of a tree on the way down. Sayo feels happy because it's been so long since a man has touched her. They finally crash to the ground, with Sears landing on top of Sayo. Sears, relieved that the trees cushioned their fall, asks if she's okay. They lock eyes and Sears, unable to resist, kisses Sayo. She suggests that since this is the only time they'll have for themselves, maybe they should take advantage of the moment and let everything out right there. Sears tightly holding Sayo in his arms, the tension between them palpable. Sears, unable to control his emotions any longer, tells Sayo that he can't hold back anymore. Sayo, sensing the intensity of the moment, gently asks him to wait for a moment. She calmly reassures him that she won't let any monsters disturb them, even though she admits that Shizuko is better at handling such things than she is. With a focused expression, Sayo conjures up a magical barrier around them, explaining that it will keep the smaller monsters at bay, ensuring that nothing will interrupt them. Sears, aware of their environment, reassures Sayo that they are in a secure place away from the village, so she can feel comfortable and open up, encouraging him to keep going as they share this meaningful experience together. As they reach the high point of their shared experience, they find themselves feeling breathless and calm. Their connection has grown stronger, and as they relax together, Sayo suggests they keep this special moment just between them. Sears agrees, feeling that this experience has deepened their trust and bond. As they prepare to leave, Sears notices the broom that Sayo had used to fly earlier and points out that it seems to have broken when they fell. Sayo, unfazed, comments that they will have to walk back to the village now. She also notes that the magical barrier she set up is about to expire, meaning they will need to be cautious of any monsters that might appear. No sooner does she say this than a pack of wolves emerges from the shadows, their eyes glowing as they approach. Sears immediately tells Sayo to get behind him, ready to protect her from any danger. But Sayo, with a cool and calm demeanor, quickly casts a spell. She points her finger at the wolves and says Icebind, instantly freezing them in place. Without missing a beat, she follows up with another spell, Icicle Wave, which shatters the frozen wolves into pieces, ending the threat in mere seconds. Sayo then turns to Sears and urges him to keep moving, showing no signs of stress or fatigue from the encounter. Watching her, Sears can't help but be amazed at her skills. He thinks to himself that Sayo is incredibly powerful, able to stop quick enemies with short chant magic, and then finish them off with deadly precision. Her ability to stay calm in the heat of the moment is something that impresses him greatly. Sears also realizes that if Sayo is this skilled, the other three women, Shizuko, Mel, and Haruka, must be equally formidable. The thought of all four of them possessing such power is both awe-inspiring and a little intimidating. As they continue their journey, another beast appears, but Sayo quickly deals with it using a spell called Absolute Zero, freezing it to death instantly. Sears, still trying to wrap his mind around her abilities, asks how she performed such a spell. Sayo casually explains that it's one of her original spells, designed to lower the temperature of the blood to -200 degrees in an instant, causing the target to freeze solid. She adds that Shizuko came up with the name for the spell. Sears, now more overwhelmed than ever, thinks to himself that Sayo is way too powerful. She doesn't even need a staff to amplify her magical power, which makes her abilities all the more remarkable. He can't help but wonder why, with all this power, they all chose to give up their lives as adventurers to live quietly in the village. Ceres recalls something Shizuko had mentioned about them being too late to marry, but even that doesn't seem to fully explain it. If they are this strong, couldn't they have forced their ex-husbands to obey them through sheer might? There must be another reason why they decided to lead quiet lives, and Ceres hopes that one day they will share that reason with him. As they walk, Ceres notices that they seem to be going in circles, passing by the same spot again. He points this out to Sayo, who suddenly realizes that they might be lost. Ceres asks if she knows the way back, and Sayo admits that she wanted to spend more time alone with him. After all, he still hasn't proposed to her yet. Ceres feels guilty, realizing that he should have been more forthcoming with his feelings. He tells Sayo that he is sorry for making her feel like she had to ask him, acknowledging that he's the lowest of the low for not doing it sooner. Sayo is surprised and touched by his words, especially when he calls her lovely. Moved by the moment, Ceres hugs Sayo tightly and confesses his love for her, asking her to stay with him forever. Sayo, with a soft smile, agrees, acknowledging that in the process she has stolen her daughter's boyfriend. She admits that she and Mel were never that close, which makes her decision a little easier. Finally, they make their way back home, where Sayo announces that she will be in Ceres' care from now on. However, Shizuko and Haruka are waiting for them, clearly annoyed that it took them so long to return. Shizuko hints that she will be questioning Ceres later about what they were up to, while Haruka seems equally curious. After a tense day filled with battles and confessions, the scene ends with a sense of anticipation as the characters prepare for whatever comes next. Ceres stands outside Misaki's house, thinking to himself, Misaki's husband Shudo owns this place, which is both a general store and a foodstuff shop. To Ceres, it's like a small convenience store from his previous world. He politely announces his arrival and apologizes for the delay, then steps inside the house. Misaki greets him, saying that they were expecting him, and Ceres replies that he hasn't seen Shudo in a long time. Shudo casually responds, calling Ceres too formal and offering him a drink, mentioning that he's saved something special for this occasion. Misaki identifies the drink as brandy, and Shudo compliments Ceres on his knowledge, saying that Ceres, along with Kazuma, is the only person in the village who understands him. He praises Ceres, calling him very good. Ceres reflects on Shudo, noting that Shudo has an unusual amount of knowledge about luxury items. Despite being intelligent, Shudo is also a bit of an eccentric with a very rational mind, but this, combined with his lack of humility, has made him unpopular among the villagers. Nevertheless, Ceres remembers how Shudo taught him to read, write, and do math, which was crucial for him as a reincarnator trying to recall forgotten knowledge. Shudo would often praise Ceres for absorbing knowledge like a sponge. Ceres expresses his gratitude to Shudo for teaching him so much, and Shudo, in turn, remarks on how impressive it was that Ceres had mastered writing by the age of 5. Shudo adds that since Ceres was so clever, he could watch over the store while Shudo read his books, creating a reciprocal relationship between them. Ceres thinks to himself that Shudo was born in the wrong place, and that if he had been born in the royal capital, he would undoubtedly be an accomplished scholar. Shudo shifts the focus back to the present, urging Ceres to drink, praising the drink as delicious. Ceres thanks him for the drink, and Shudo shares that he enjoys talking with Ceres and Kazuma, but doesn't find it fun to talk with others. Ceres responds with a simple "is that so?" Before Shudo begins to open up more, he admits that he's unfit to be a parent or a husband, revealing that although he kept up appearances, he disliked dealing with Maria when she was a baby, finding it to be a real pain. He then gets to the point, asking if Ceres came to talk about Misaki. Ceres confirms this, and Shudo, without hesitation, tells Ceres that he doesn't mind and that he can take Misaki with him. Ceres, surprised, asks Shudo if he's sure, to which Shudo responds by reiterating that he's unfit to be a husband and no longer loves Misaki. Shudo explains that his love for Misaki peaked when she gave birth to Maria, but over time, that love has completely faded. Now, he says, they barely speak to each other at home. Shudo tells Ceres that if he wants to take Misaki, he's fine with it, and notes that Ceres has liked Misaki for quite some time now. Ceres, taken aback, asks if Shudo figured that out, and Shudo responds with a knowing tone, saying that he did. He recalls the time when Misaki gave both of them a bath, and how Ceres' face turned beet red. Shudo points out that Ceres wouldn't have reacted that way if it were just Maria, noting that Ceres lost his mother at a young age, so it's not surprising that as a young boy, he would yearn for a woman with motherly features. Shudo adds that there are plenty of cases like this, even joking that there are probably oddballs out there who like mothers and grandmas. But he reassures Sears that despite all this, he believes Sears will make Misaki happy. Finally, Shudo turns to Misaki and asks if she's okay with this too, addressing her directly. Misaki, clearly annoyed by the conversation, responds with frustration, repeating the word grandma as if offended by the comparison. The scene opens with Sears deep in thought. He's reflecting on Shudo's intelligence, recognizing him as a smart guy who's probably already figured out his future plans. Sears, curious, asks Shudo what he plans to do from now on. Shudo's response is full of enthusiasm as he announces that he's going to buy himself a young slave. He explains that with Misaki, who he finds boring, and Maria, who's too dreamy, he needs someone different. He's looking for a cute girl who's smart and eager to learn, someone he can have meaningful conversations with. He thinks that a high-class slave would be perfect for this. Misaki, hearing Shudo's words, is furious. She sarcastically apologizes for being so boring and then challenges Shudo, offering to take him to look at the stars. But Shudo, not backing down, reminds Misaki that she's not his wife anymore, so she doesn't have the right to hit him. Then, turning to Sears, Shudo tells him to just take Misaki already. Sears, catching the tension, agrees and suggests to Misaki that they should just go home. Misaki, cooling down, agrees with Sears, and they prepare to leave. Before they depart, Sears thanks Shudo, to which Shudo responds with a loud declaration of his plans to read all the books he wants, now that he's free from any obligations. As they step outside, Sears suggests to Misaki that once they leave the village and find a place to settle down, they should register as a family. Misaki, looking towards the church, seems lost in thought. Sears asks if she needs something from the church. Misaki then shares something deeply personal. She explains that her previous partner wasn't interested in weddings, so she never got the chance to wear a wedding dress. Part of it, she admits, was her own embarrassment, leading them to simply file the paperwork and call it a day. She reflects on how, in her youth, she was quite muscular, which made the idea of wearing a dress seem odd. Sears, hearing this, is struck by the idea of Misaki in a dress. He thinks to himself that he absolutely has to see her in one. Meanwhile, Misaki, shifting the conversation, worries about how much muscle she's lost over the years. She wonders aloud if she can even swing a sword like she used to, especially since they're planning to go on an adventure. Sears reassures her, saying that while they're all going on the adventure, he'll be the one doing most of the fighting. But Misaki, determined and proud, insists that as a knight, she must stand on the front lines. She refuses to be a burden to Sears and declares that she's going to train herself. With that, Misaki gathers the other adventurers. She apologizes for calling them together so suddenly. Haruka, a bit surprised by the suddenness, comments on it, while Shizuko, understanding Misaki's impulsive nature, remarks that it's typical of her to jump into action as soon as she sets her mind to something. Misaki explains that she's worried about how long it's been since she last exercised. Haruka, catching on, asks if she's planning to take on a rock golem all by herself. Misaki confirms this, and Shizuko offers to give her a defensive buff, which Misaki gratefully accepts. Sayo, always calm, says she'll be cheering for Misaki while enjoying a cup of tea. Misaki then picks up her sword and engages in a fierce battle with a stone monster. She fights valiantly, but it's clear that the years of inactivity have taken a toll on her. Watching from the sidelines, Sayo notes that in her prime, Misaki would have defeated the monster with a single blow. Seeing Misaki struggle, Haruka, unable to stand by any longer, steps in. She turns to Shizuko for support, and Shizuko agrees to help. Haruka then charges in, eager to show how vanguards work together. She's been itching to move her body as well. Misaki, refusing to be left behind, shouts that she can't afford to disappoint Sears. She takes the lead, fighting the monster head-on, while Haruka distracts it, dividing its attention. In the midst of the battle, Misaki reflects on her past. She remembers how her married life wasn't easy from the start. No matter what she did, her husband remained indifferent, making her question why she rushed into marriage. Despite this, she cherished the time she spent tending to the store with Sears. He always made her laugh and promised to take her away once he grew up. This memory fuels her determination. She vows to become a strong woman, worthy of accepting Sears' feelings. With renewed strength, Misaki swings her sword with all her might, delivering a powerful blow to the monster. Shizuko, watching, comments on how strong the attack was, while Sayo muses that perhaps a bit of the Berserk Black Knight's strength has returned to Misaki. After defeating the monster, Misaki stands victorious. She thinks to herself that no matter what challenges or emotions Sears throws her way, she'll face them head-on. The scene then shifts to Series, who is looking at a wedding dress for Misaki. He notes that it's gotten quite late and realizes that he can't ride a horse at this hour. Deciding that he has just enough stamina left, he uses his magic to walk on air, thinking about Misaki as he goes. He reflects on her quiet, kind, and motherly nature. In some ways, she reminds him of Shizuko, though Shizuko's ancestry gives her a more ancient, reincarnated feel. Misaki, on the other hand, has no such ancestry, yet her dignified appearance radiates purity and beauty. Series sees her as a Yamato Nadeshiko, a woman of idealized feminine beauty and virtue in Japan. He admires her broad-mindedness and her ability to accept everything with grace. Though she's not a healer, he's certain that she's the type of person who would be the first to worry about him and offer him comfort. As Series hurries back, he's filled with the resolve to do everything in his power to ensure that Misaki can be true to herself. He's determined to make her happy and protect her. With a final burst of energy, he pushes forward, running for the sake of the woman he loves. It is nighttime and Misaki is practicing with her sword. She notices that the sword, having been unused for years, is now in poor condition. As she trains, Series suddenly appears behind her and calls her name. She turns to see him and asks where he has been. Series, a bit vague, says he was taking care of something but quickly shifts the conversation, asking if she can come alone to the church later. Misaki is surprised by the request but agrees, wondering what this is all about, especially since Series seemed unusually tired. Later, Misaki arrives at the church, puzzled to find the door unlocked since no one should be there at that time. She enters, calling out for Series, but instead she is taken aback by the sight of a beautiful wedding dress laid out before her. Surprised and emotional, Misaki remarks on how unexpected it is for her to be wearing such a dress at her age. Then Series appears behind her, dressed in a white suit. Misaki puts on the dress and nervously asks how she looks. Series responds that she looks lovely, and she thanks him. Series admits that he wanted to get her a necklace as a symbol of their engagement, but didn't have time. Misaki reassures him, saying that she's already very happy, and asks why he's doing all this for her. Series then confesses that he has loved her since he was a child, fondly remembering the time they spent together tending the store. He cherished those moments, especially seeing her smile. Hearing this, Misaki becomes emotional, and then Series asks her to marry him. Misaki, overjoyed, agrees. But just as they're about to seal their promise with a touch, Series suddenly stumbles backward, thinking to himself that he might have used his airwalk ability too many times in a row. Misaki, concerned, calls out his name, and Series comes to his senses. Misaki tells him to rest, and that he must have worked too hard. Misaki, deeply touched by how far he went to make this moment special for her, feels she needs to give him something in return. Series, observing that her dress has become somewhat revealing, playfully comments that she has already provided him with more than enough. Misaki, with a playful tone, teases Series about how he's always seemed a bit mischievous, reminding him that he used to glance at her when they were younger. She playfully asks if he wants to be closer, and then, with a light-hearted suggestion, she takes off her formal dress and suggests it might be more comfortable if they hugged from behind. Series agrees, and as he gently hugs her from behind, Misaki feels happy and says she likes how it feels. Series also feels happy and shows kindness. Misaki, aware that they are in a church, makes a light joke about being in such a special place, but then shares that she's never felt this way with Shudo. She feels ready to accept Series' feelings. As their feelings grows, Misaki hugs Series closely, and they share a special and meaningful experience. She tells him that they are very connected and both feel very happy. Misaki reflects on how she has never pursued pleasure like this before and thanks Series for the experience. She then mentions that more than a necklace, she wants a new sword and set of armor. She explains that she and the others will go adventuring, aiming to make a bigger name for themselves than Maria and her group. Misaki wants to be the knight who stands on the front lines, protecting the people she cares about during tough battles. Series, supportive as ever, agrees to get her what she needs. Afterward, they return home, and as they arrive, Series announces their return. Misaki asks to be treated well from now on, and Shizuko, another character, chimes in, saying that includes everyone. She suggests that they review their future plans. First, they will marry Series and leave the village so that Zect and his group won't have a place to return to. However, just leaving might not be enough to prevent them from fulfilling their responsibilities, so the second part of the plan is to have Series accomplish more than the hero party. Haruka, another character, is eager for the action, saying she's itching to go wild. Shizuko then notices that Sears seems to have something on his mind and asks him about it. Sears, lost in thought, admits that he was reminiscing about how good people Big Bro Kazuma and the others were since he hasn't seen them in a while. Shizuko, however, disagrees with his view, sarcastically calling them good people from Sears' perspective, but promising to show him the true nature of those bastards. The mention of their ex-husbands stirs up anger in the group. Sears is in a room with his 4 wives. Haruka, one of the wives, is the first to speak. She tells Sears how she wanted an amicable separation and didn't speak up earlier because Kazuma, her ex-husband, was close to Sears. But now she declares that Kazuma is a terrible person, so bad that his name should be Scumma. Sayo then chimes in, warning Sears not to be fooled by her ex-husband Kato, who acts like a tough man but is actually just an abusive fool. Misaki, another wife, adds her voice, calling her ex-husband Shudo a neglectful parent. The conversation continues as the wives share their negative feelings about their ex-husbands. Sears, however, tries to defend them, saying it felt like their ex-husbands were just acting like bad guys on purpose, but Shizuko interrupts him, saying she took back the money Sears had given Kazuma and places a bag full of gold coins on the table. Sears becomes angry, shouting that the money was meant to support Kazuma's dream. Haruka slaps Sears hard across the face, calling him an idiot and telling him there's no need to give Kazuma any money. The other wives agree, reminding Sears that their ex-husbands don't deserve any gratitude. Shizuko then asks Sears why he wasn't getting paid, to which Sears replies that it was because he took them all in. Haruka grabs Sears by the shoulders and shakes him, calling him an idiot and telling him to think things through. Sayo then explains that when they all got jobs, they received a pile of gold, but their ex-husbands kept it all for themselves, without even considering sharing it. Haruka says that she had thought they could split the money or put it in a family budget, but their ex-husbands had other plans. Shizuko continues by telling Sears that they aren't denying his memories, but what he experienced was different from what they went through. She recalls that even when Sears was a kid, Kazuma looked at him with respect, but despite that, when the wives left, the men refused to share anything with them. Sears becomes troubled by these revelations, thinking about how the men kept everything to themselves: the house, the fields, the money. Though he acknowledges that an upright person wouldn't do that, he still feels indebted to them since they raised him. Sears then tells his wives that he doesn't want anything besides them and doesn't care about living in a big mansion or marrying a princess. Living with the 4 of them is far better than anything else. He then becomes emotional, telling his wives that even as a child he loved them, but had no choice but to give up on that love, yet when he looked at other women he felt nothing. He says that just getting one of them was unlikely, yet now they're all together, witnessing a miracle. Sears adds that even 10,000 gold coins are nothing compared to living happily with his 4 wives. Shizuko agrees, saying that their happiness now is what matters most. She adds that they don't need to worry about their ex-husbands anymore. Sears, surprised, calls out to her, but Shizuko takes his arm and reveals that she actually wants to punish the ex-husbands for all they did. Sayo then remarks that their ex-husbands will soon be buying young slaves with all the money they kept, and Haruka adds that the children will have no place in the homes their ex-husbands will build. Misaki declares that they'll prove how much better Sears is than their ex-husbands and exact their revenge. Sears, hearing all this, thinks to himself that the wives haven't taken his words to heart, and now Shizuko seems even more spiteful, wanting revenge on all of the ex-husbands. Sayo points out that Zector, one of the ex-husbands, is already as good as dead in the mines, but Shizuko laments that she wanted to kill him with her own hands. Sears finds this creepy and decides to sort out his thoughts alone in a neighboring town. He doesn't hold a grudge against the ex-husbands, but realizes that if he doesn't help the wives get revenge, they will remain in pain. He knows he needs to think of a solution for them. Sears then goes to the slave market, where he sees a man happily walking with a slave, realizing that this is probably what the ex-husbands will do, buy young slaves to their taste. He decides that before they can do that, he will play his cards right and find a way to convince Shizuko and the others. With that in mind, he heads to a house and meets Count Gameruda, the feudal lord of his hometown. Count Gameruda is curious about what happened to Sears after he left the hero's party and has heard that he earned the title of Dragon Slayer. Sears, grateful for the Count's concern, presents him with dragon scales as a gift, explaining that they are from the first dragon he ever killed. The Count offers to pay for the valuable scales, but Sears insists it's a gift to show his gratitude for the Count's good rule, which allowed him to grow up in a kind village. After some more conversation, Sears gets to the real reason for his visit. He asks the Count to free Zector, who was sentenced to the mines for tax evasion, offering to pay his share of the taxes. The Count is surprised, noting that Zector has a bad reputation and no one would save him. Sears acknowledges this but explains that Zector took good care of him when he was a kid and he wants to repay that kindness. The Count agrees to free Zector in exchange for the dragon scales, and Sears thinks to himself that while Zector may be spared from dying in the mines, a fate worse than death might await him. Soon after, a worker brings Zector before Sears, and Zector immediately apologizes to him. Sears, however, tells him that they're going back to the village. On the way, Sears confronts Zector about selling Shizuko and tells him that if he had known, he would have been first in line to buy her. Zector recalls that they made a promise like that when Sears was a child, but admits he gave in to temptation. Sears reveals that by chance, he did end up buying Shizuko and making her his wife. He asks Zector if he regrets his actions, to which Zector replies that he does. Sears then tells him to apologize to Shizuko. Sears thinks to himself that although he doesn't want Zector to meet Shizuko, having him in the village will be important for what's to come. When they arrive at the house, Zector asks Sears to stay by his side. But Sears refuses, admitting that he's scared too. He tells Zector to be a good punching bag for his wife and sends him inside. When Shizuko opens the door and sees Zector, she's shocked and furious. She calls out his name in anger, demanding to know if he's finally ready to face the consequences. Shizuko confronts Zector, her anger evident. She demands that he has forgotten what he did to her, questioning how he dares to appear before her again. Her fury only grows as she reminds him of his misdeeds, wasting all their money on booze and gambling, tricking her into slavery, and still having the audacity to show his face. Haruka, Sayo, and Misaki observe the confrontation. Haruka turns to Zector and asks what's the matter, remarking that the scumbag should have been sent to the mines. Sayo adds that there's trash in front of their house, while Misaki sarcastically questions what this piece of junk is doing there. Meanwhile, Sears watches, finding the situation terrifying. He clarifies that he brought Zector back because he is essential for Sears' plan to get revenge on Zect and the others. Sears sets the rules. As long as they don't kill Zector, everything else is fair game. Zector, now panicking, pleads with Sears to wait, but Shizuko shouts back, confirming if everything except killing is allowed. Misaki, with a dark intent, suggests that they make Zector go through a fate worse than the mines. Zector's terrified screams echo as the scene shifts. Sears lies on the grass, listening to the sound of Zector being beaten. As he listens, his mind wanders, reflecting on his life. He thinks about how the women he loved growing up were the mothers of his childhood friends, an unusual kind of love that most would give up on, but he never did. Now his love has been realized, and he is determined to do what is necessary for the sake of the women he loves. Zector's cries interrupt his thoughts as Sears goes to check on him. Zector is badly beaten, but Shizuko reassures Sears that she's patched him up with healing magic. Haruka adds that Zector nearly died once. Sears muses that the women are as kind as goddesses. They probably didn't go too hard on Zector. After this, Sears takes Zector to the village chief's house, where he manages to get the chief to pardon Zector. Now Zector is trying to live a better life at the chief's house. Later, Sears gathers his wives and announces his plan. He'll head to the next town to execute his idea for revenge. He asks them to trust him and promises to explain everything later. The following day, Sears meets the ex-husbands of his wives and introduces them to Orkman, who will help with Sears' scheme. One of the ex-husbands asks about the sudden introduction of new slaves. Sears reassures them, explaining that he is concerned for the newly single men and wants to give them a present as a token of appreciation. Zector asks if he too should receive this gift, to which Sears responds that Zector used to be a good person and hopes he'll treat his new wife well, just as he once treated Sears. Orkman and Sears present the women, Naji, Mary, Eleanor, Charlotte, and Chaiwa. The village chief offers Sears the position of village chief, but Sears declines. Confused, Shizuko asks Sears what this all means. Haruka comments on how happy the men seem. Sears explains his reasoning. The chief's new bride is an elf, chosen specifically to frustrate Zect. Heroes like Zect are forbidden from marrying non-humans or owning slaves, so no matter how much Zect wants her, he can't have her. Shizuko then asks about Zector, noticing his unsettling happiness. Sears explains that Zector's bride belongs to a tribe that does not tolerate infidelity at all. If Sector even glances at another woman, he'll face severe consequences, potentially losing fingers. Chaiwa, Zector's new wife, asserts that she needs to be loved the most at all times, a sentiment that seems contradictory for a slave. Sears overhears this and comments to Shizuko that it's the same attitude that led him to where he is now. He adds that Zector's punishment for selling Shizuko is never being able to cheat again. Sears reflects that Zect will be frustrated seeing his father with a beautiful bride the same age as him. Haruka asks about Kazuma's slave, and Sears explains that she was a high-class cooking maid for a noble. But what Kazuma truly needs is someone like Haruka, someone who can manage the house and take care of him. Sears hopes that Kazuma will realize just how important Haruka was and hopes they can reunite. Sayo asks about Kato's bride, and Sears reveals that she's a former mercenary who is tougher and stronger than Kato. They're likely to have a tumultuous relationship, but Sears believes that Kato's aggressive personality might soften through this experience. Misaki then asks about her ex-husband Shudo. Sears explains that Shudo's new wife is the daughter of a former noble, someone he can't outwit or overpower. Misaki comments that Shudo is going to have a rough time, and Sears agrees. He thinks to himself that this new bride will break Shudo's pride and hopefully make him more humble. Sears then asks his wives what they think of his choices, noting that the new brides bear a resemblance to someone they know. Sayo and Misaki agree that the resemblance is uncanny. Sears thinks to himself that Zect and the others will have no home to return to. Their revenge is complete, and now it's time to leave the village. Sears then suggests they all head to the royal capital to enjoy their lives. His wives happily agree, and Haruka mentions they'll need a big enough room for all 5 of them. Sayo suggests a suite, but Misaki worries about the cost. Sears assures them that he'll earn the money, so they shouldn't worry. Haruka teases him, calling his words cool, and suggests they'll give him a hand too. She winks at him, and Sayo playfully adds that they'll be helping him. Haruka scolds her, saying even Sears can't handle all 4 of them at once. Shizuko and Misaki hold Sears' hands, while Sayo jokes about sleeping. Haruka firmly rejects that idea. As they ride in a horse cart, Sears reflects on something he kept quiet. Zect won't stay in this village forever. If Zect manages to defeat the Demon King, he could become a noble or even a prince consort. But if Zect fails, he won't be able to return to a normal life. Zect and his team sitting in a room worried. Zect is deep in thought, acknowledging the fact that they can't match up to what Series had done for them. Battles which used to be simple for them, like defeating Ogre Kings, have now become difficult. Zect reflects on their inability to coordinate properly in battle. He thinks that there is only one solution left. He then speaks up, apologizing to his team for what he's about to say. Lita responds calmly, saying that they already know. Mel adds that Zect is planning to offer one of them to bring Sears back, while Maria continues the thought, guessing that Sears' return is Zect's goal. Zect agrees with them. Maria then narrows it down, stating that it's either her or Lita since Mel had hurt Sears in the past. Mel steps in, expressing her regret for the way she treated Sears, and mentions that she would like to ask for his forgiveness. Zect, feeling bad about the whole situation, admits that if Series demanded it, he would offer all 3 of them. This leaves Lita, Mel, and Maria stunned as they realize the gravity of what Zect is saying. Zect, in his thoughts, concludes that the women are finally starting to understand the true nature of the world. He reflects that, in his eyes, the saint, sage, and sword saint, once powerful figures, now appear to be nothing more than dirty village girls. He ranks them mentally, placing them no longer in the middle tier, but at the top of the bottom. As Zect continues to think, he daydreams about the future. Once the party regains its former glory and they defeat the Demon King, Zect imagines that his reward will be the opportunity to marry princesses and noblewomen as concubines. He promises in his thoughts that he would give all those women to Ceres, believing that this would bring his friend back. Lita, meanwhile, has her own thoughts. She recalls how she disliked Ceres when they were younger because her parents favored him. Yet despite her meanness, Ceres never got angry, proving to her that he had a kind heart. Lita then admits to herself that she would probably be happier with Ceres instead of Zect. Mel also reflects, calling herself an idiot. She realizes that she was blinded by the thought of becoming the hero's concubine, and in doing so, hurt someone precious to her. Mel remembers how Ceres comforted her when she was unsure if Zect would choose her, telling her that he would be there for her if she ever needed him. Now she wishes to be a proper couple with Ceres. Maria, too, is lost in thought. She admits that she didn't like Zect at first, but eventually fell for him after giving in to his enthusiasm. However, she is angry that Zect is willing to discard her so easily. She vents her frustration, realizing that her first love was actually Sears. Talking to Sears always made her feel as if she were speaking to someone older, someone who made her feel at ease. She concludes that she would be happier with Sears than being Zekt's wife. The scene shifts as Zect and his team head to a church, where Zect requests to contact Sears. However, he is denied. The response is that the king has given a royal decree stating that a hero must always move forward and cannot remain idle. Zect protests, saying that he just wants to bring Sears back, but he is denied again. He is told to look around the refugees from nearby villages. If the hero had not stayed in the city, their villages would not have been destroyed by orcs. Looking at the crying children, Nell expresses her sorrow, while Maria apologizes for her previous actions, suggesting that they leave immediately. Zect, feeling frustrated, wonders why nothing seems to go right for him. The scene then transitions to Sears and his wives, who have reached the royal capital and are now living in a luxurious house. Misaki remarks how nice the place is, and Haruka suggests pushing the beds together. As they prepare for the night, Seo comments that this is going to be their love nest. Shizuko, joining in, suggests that they take turns bathing before bed, to which Misaki teases Sears about being tired from the trip. Shizuko also hints that she's ready for something more intimate, causing Sears to blush and stammer. Haruka interrupts, warning Shizuko not to lose herself in her fantasies. The story takes a more personal turn as Shizuko draws close to Sears, leading to a series of interactions with each of his wives. They each share moments with him until he eventually becomes too exhausted to continue. Haruka, noticing his condition, comments that he has reached his limit. A few days later, the wives are lounging in bed, reflecting on their situation. Haruka wonders if it's really alright, while Seo comments that Sears loves them too much to stop. Haruka expresses her frustration, wanting to fight alongside Sears rather than just stay at home. She reminds them that Sears is out hunting dragons to support their lavish lifestyle, but she wishes he would let them help. Seo suggests that, since they can't do much else, they should focus on polishing themselves as women to keep Sears happy. Haruka, annoyed, calls them lazy. Later that evening, when Sears returns home, Haruka confronts him, demanding that they be allowed to work too. Sears easily agrees, much to Haruka's surprise. He reveals that he's saved up enough money, so it's a good time for them to start working again. Shizuko then asks just how many dragons Sears has hunted, to which he casually responds that he has hunted all the dragons around the capital, including the Boulder Dragon, the Water and Ice Dragon, and the Storm King Dragon. Altogether, he estimates about 100 dragons and wyverns. Haruka is shocked, wondering what they could possibly do with all that money. Sears, unfazed, explains that he had some hunting equipment made for them, and now it's ready for them to pick up. The women try on their new outfits, admiring the craftsmanship. Shizuko holds a magical staff, amazed at its power. Haruka inspects her knife, while Seo and Misaki test out their own equipment. They feel like they're back in their prime and are excited to hunt again. Misaki asks what their target will be, suggesting wyverns, but Sears proposes that they start with something easier, ogres. The scene shifts again as the group faces a band of ogres. Sears notes that something feels off because Shizuko, meant to be their healer, is instead using her staff to attack the ogres, knocking them out effortlessly. Seo explains that Shizuko has developed an original spell that reverses healing magic, draining life force from her opponents. Sears, while impressed, finds the concept terrifying. Haruka and Misaki also join the fight, swiftly dispatching the remaining ogres. Sears realizes that the women are far stronger than Zekt's party, and possibly even stronger than himself. Finally, the chapter closes with a new threat looming as a dragon reports to its boss that dragons are being hunted one by a single person. The boss orders an investigation into this mysterious hunter, with the implication that if the situation calls for it, the hunter must be killed. The black dragon descends the stairs, grumbling aloud to himself. He reflects that Master Bauer is getting on in years and questions if he's really being sent to deal with a mere mortal. As he continues his descent, the black dragon mutters about Bauer possibly forgetting that he had slaughtered an entire hero's party and their country 1,200 years ago. Annoyed, he spreads his dragon wings, thinking about how much of a pain it is to trample bugs. He knows, however, that if he continues complaining, Master Bauer would destroy him. Despite his frustration, the black dragon understands that Bauer is the ruler of Hades, and even though he is old, his power is still unmatched. The dragon realizes that even he, one of the great dragon lords capable of killing a goddess, is no match for Master Bauer. Resigned to his task, the black dragon decides to get it over with so he can enjoy himself later. A portal opens in the sky, and he flies through it. At the same time, Sears leans against a wall, deep in thought. Recently, he has sensed someone following him, a presence so terrifying that it unnerves him. Even though he's surrounded by skilled people like Shizuko and the others, they don't feel the murderous intent directed at him. Sears doesn't want to involve them in his troubles. Determined to handle things alone, Sears tells his wives that he's going out for a bit of shopping. Shizuko simply responds with a casual, "That's soon," while Seo wishes him a nice trip. After excusing himself, Sears leaves. While walking, Sears becomes aware of someone following him. He stops and asks aloud if the person stalking him is nearby. A voice responds, confirming that Sears has indeed noticed him. Sears isn't surprised and remarks that it wasn't difficult to sense such strong killing intent. He continues, speculating whether the person following him might be one of the 4 heavenly kings or perhaps the demon king. The black dragon, irritated by the comparison, becomes furious. He demands to know why Sears is comparing him to the demon king and the 4 heavenly kings. His hand transforms into a dragon's claw as he declares himself to be the black dragon, the strongest of the 5 great dragon lords, and a member of the dragon royals. He commands Sears not to associate him with such lowly beings. Realizing the enormity of the situation, Sears thinks quickly. He remembers that the dragon royals are closer to gods, and that even the demon king is insignificant in comparison to them. He bows deeply and introduces himself as Sears. In a respectful tone, Sears asks the black dragon how he can humbly be of service. The black dragon acknowledges Sears' strength despite him being a mere human. He commends Sears for his power, noting how many dragons he has slain. Sears is honored by the praise, and with great respect, challenges the black dragon to a duel. Amused, the black dragon remarks that dragons revere the strong, but Sears has killed too many of their kin. Therefore, the duel will be taken as a compromise. Sears, realizing his limits, tries to decline, claiming that he could never hope to challenge such a grand being. However, the black dragon is insistent. He proposes they fight at a mountain with a crater on top, offering Sears a handicap. He explains that if Sears can either defeat him or escape to the forest, he will be considered the winner. Additionally, the black dragon promises not to use his full dragon form during the battle. With the terms set, the black dragon declares dragonification and transforms into a full-fledged dragon. As the transformation completes, Sears watches in horror, realizing that his opponent is one of the 5 great dragon lords. Even without the dragonification, this fight will be nearly impossible for him. The forest, which serves as his escape route, is kilometers away, and just when life was going so well, Sears thinks to himself. Back at their home, Shizuko expresses concern for Sears. She wonders if something is wrong, while Haruka notes that Sears seemed troubled before he left. Shizuko admits that she has a bad feeling, and Seo adds that Sears likely didn't want to worry them. Misaki agrees that they can't just leave him alone, prompting Shizuko to point out the direction Sears had gone towards the forest. The 4 wives decide to go after him, and as they search, they notice something strange in the sky. Suddenly, Master Bauer, the Hades dragon, appears. He tells them not to disturb the battle, identifying himself as the one who rules Hades. Haruka, alarmed, demands to know if Bauer is after Sears. Bauer brushes off their concerns, calling them a boisterous group of ladies before transforming into his dragon form. He tells them that they don't enjoy pointless killing and orders them to scram, as their business is with Sears. Meanwhile, Sears hides from the black dragon, who is growing increasingly frustrated. Black Dragon shouts for Sears to come out, threatening to melt every rock in the area as Sears continues to run. With no other choice, Sears steps out from his hiding spot and yells that the black dragon had promised not to use dragonification, pointing out the dragon wings. Realizing his mistake, the black dragon folds his wings and acknowledges, "Fair enough, these are dragon wings, my bad." Seizing the moment, Sears begins to run, thinking that he needs to escape as quickly as possible. But before he can make much progress, the black dragon appears in front of him, mocking him for being too slow. Sears curses internally, realizing that he has no choice but to use his hidden power. The black dragon, sensing that Sears is preparing to attack, encourages him to bring it on. In response, Sears initiates his anti-demon secret technique, Carolina Attack. He throws a bag at the black dragon, which bursts open on his face. The contents, powdered hot chili peppers and wasabi, cause Black Dragon immense pain, blinding him. Covering his eyes, Black Dragon in agony shouts, "My eyes, that hurts." Sirius explains to himself that poison could be neutralized by magic, so he used the hottest substances he could find, exploiting the weakness of magic. With the dragon temporarily incapacitated, Sirius attempts to escape. However, before he can get far, the Black Dragon's claw strikes him from behind, knocking him to the ground. The Black Dragon looms over him, roaring, "You've really done it now." As Sirius collapses, the Black Dragon coldly remarks that the claws used to kill him are dragon claws, and since they are now in the forest, Sirius is technically the winner. Though Sirius is dead, the Black Dragon decides to honor his victory by granting him his liver and blood. Whether or not this ends in success is up to Sirius now. While this is happening, Haruka, in the midst of battling Master Bauer, grows increasingly concerned for Sirius. Misaki agrees, and the two of them launch their attacks, but their efforts have little impact on the divine-class Hades dragon. Saya realizes that they are no match for such a powerful being, while Haruka fears that if they don't act quickly, Sirius is in grave danger. Shizuko, desperate, pleads with Master Bauer, begging him not to kill Sirius. Bauer, watching over the situation, tells the Black Dragon to head to the mountain. The wives, panicked, rush toward Sirius. Upon finding him unconscious, they frantically call out his name, trying to wake him. Sirius. "Are you all right, Sirius?" Slowly, Sirius opens his eyes, much to their relief. Shizuko thanks the heavens, noticing that while Sirius' clothes are bloody, he has no injuries. Sirius, however, is confused. "I thought he had clawed me from behind and killed me," he reflects. "I was having a dream where I saw my mother, who died when I was little, and a man who looked like my father, who died so long ago that I couldn't remember his face." The group returns to their hotel, and Sirius heads to the men's bathroom to wash off the blood. As he showers, he reflects on the strange experience. He narrates, "It's not like a fever from being sick. It feels more like I'm filled with fighting spirit," he thinks. But something feels off, especially in his lower body. "Even though I'm in cold water, this is weird. Seriously weird. What in the world?" Suddenly, some people in the bathroom see Sirius, startled by what they witnessed. Sirius is reflecting on his body after his recent battle with the Black Dragon. As he walks, he thinks to himself about how strange his body feels, particularly his lower half, which hasn't calmed down since the battle. His mind shifts to his wives, and he decides to return home quickly, not wanting to worry them by being late. When Sirius arrives home, his wives warmly greet him, expressing their concern. Shizuko asks him how his body is, to which Sirius responds that he is already fine. Curious about how they found him, Sirius asks how they knew where he was. Haruka explains that they had been following him until a Hades dragon appeared and, surprisingly, told them where Sirius was. Misaki adds that they tried to fight the dragon but didn't stand a chance. Sirius is relieved that none of them were injured and reassures them that the dragons are unlikely to keep pursuing him. Sayo notices Sirius seems uneasy and asks why. Sirius, feeling awkward, admits he's struggling to calm down. His wives lead him to a private area, change into more comfortable clothing, and try to help him relax. Shizuko comments on the situation feeling more intense than usual, and Haruka asks about the cause. Sayo reassures him they will help, and Misaki promises their best effort. Sirius feels overwhelmed and worries about controlling his emotions. Misaki assures him they are prepared, while Sayo encourages him to relax. Haruka gently touches his chest, reminding him of his efforts, and Shizuko reassures him they'll handle everything. As the night progresses, Sirius shows surprising energy, shifting his attention among his wives. They become tired, with Shizuko, Haruka, Sayo, and Misaki each expressing their exhaustion. Sirius starts to feel relief and thinks about the changes in his body after the Black Dragon encounter. Realizing he's hungry, he decides to get something to eat. Sirius heads to a restaurant and orders an enormous amount of food. The chef, taken aback, approaches and remarks that only an Orkman could eat multiple steaks. He asks Sirius if he can handle it, to which Sirius quickly finishes all the food and says, "Done, can I get another 10? The staff at the restaurant is shocked as Sirius continues to devour plate after plate, repeatedly asking for more. A bystander observes this and thinks that it seems like it's still not enough for him. Eventually, the chef returns and informs Sirius that they've run out of meat and pleads for him to spare them. Satisfied for the time being, Sirius leaves the restaurant and goes to practice his sword techniques. While swinging his blade, he realizes that his body feels even more toned than before, and no matter how much he swings, he doesn't get tired. He begins to wonder if he has gained some extraordinary stamina after his battle with the Black Dragon. As Ceres continues his practice, a rock dragon appears before him. Ceres, still wary of dragons after his encounter with the Black Dragon, thinks to himself that he'd rather not deal with another one. Suddenly, a voice echoes in his mind, addressing him as Great One, my king and protector. Ceres is startled, realizing that the voice is coming from the rock dragon. He decides to try communicating through his thoughts and asks the dragon if it's speaking to him, reminding the creature that he is a human. The rock dragon, however, sees through him, commenting that it can clearly see the form of a great black dragon within him. The dragon assumes there must be a reason why Ceres has taken on a human form and excuses itself, addressing him as Dragon Lord before leaving. Confused, Ceres reflects on his death during the battle with the Black Dragon, realizing that something must have happened to him during that time. He wonders what exactly the Black Dragon did to him. Before he can delve further into his thoughts, a wyvern approaches him and licks his face. Ceres, surprised by the affectionate gesture, asks the creature if it wants him to pet it. The wyvern lowers its head, allowing Ceres to stroke it. As he pets the creature, Ceres contemplates that he might never be able to hunt dragons again. In exchange for saving his life, it seems that he has been placed under a curse that prevents him from fighting dragons. He thinks that perhaps he could ask the Black Dragon for answers. Despite these strange changes in his body, Ceres feels that his newfound strength, extraordinary stamina, and ability to communicate with dragons will be useful in protecting his wives. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a hero's party where Zect expresses concern over the growing number of dragons heading toward them. The priest confirms that Pope Romulus has reported a significant increase in dragon activity. Zect, troubled, realizes that the priest is hinting that they need to defeat the dragons. He remarks that he has never heard of so many dragons moving at once, and the priest explains that they don't know the cause either. It seems that the dragons are fleeing in fear of something and are heading toward the metropolis of Bushia. The priest warns that if the dragons are not stopped, the people of the city will die. Zect, Lita, Maria, and Mel are all shocked by the gravity of the situation. Zect, determined to face the dragons, refuses to back down even as his team expresses doubt. However, the priest interrupts, wishing them good luck and advising them to seek help if they can't handle the dragons on their own. He suggests that they could cooperate with the Lord of Bushia, the Adventurers Guild, or the Church. Before leaving, the priest remarks that Mr. Ceres would have jumped into action without any complaints. Zect and his team eventually arrive at the Lord's State in Bushia. The Adventurers Guild offers Zect as many knights and soldiers as he needs. The guild leader asks Zect how many knights to deploy, whether they should wield swords or spears, and what the strategy should be. Zect, overwhelmed and unsure of what to do, leaves the decision to the guild leader. The guild leader, realizing that Zect and his team have no experience commanding troops, takes charge of the soldiers. As the city comes under attack by a horde of dragons, Lita urges Zect to retreat and regroup with the soldiers. However, Zect, unwilling to abandon the front lines, refuses. He firmly believes that being a hero means standing brave against any formidable enemy, even if he lacks the skill with swords, magic, or healing. He attacks a rock dragon, injuring it, and proudly calls out to his team to follow his lead. However, the number of dragons quickly overwhelms them. Zect yells for his team to get away, and Maria forms a holy wall to shield them from the dragon's attacks. Nell, terrified, calls for help, while Lita is paralyzed with fear. As the dragons close in, Zect realizes that while being a hero requires courage, it doesn't mean that everyone around him is as brave.
The dragon rushes toward the city and everyone is in shock. No one is willing to accompany Zect. Gritting his teeth, he realizes that he must go alone. As he confronts the beast, he slashes at it, but the dragon retaliates, sinking its teeth into his left arm. Despite the injury, he manages to kill the dragon before losing consciousness. After some time, Zect opens his eyes, but his left arm remains immobile. Looking around, he sees that Mill and the other girls are still within the barrier. He feels relieved that they are unharmed. As he heads toward the city, his relief is quickly replaced by horror. Dead bodies litter the streets. A man approaches and informs him that the city lord is dead. Suddenly, a small boy begins throwing stones at Zect, accusing him of being a monster rather than a hero. The man beside the boy intervenes, urging the child to calm down. Despite the tragedy, he acknowledges that Zect is still a hero. However, turning to Zect, he demands to know why he chose to fight. Zect has no other response. Dragons cannot communicate, leaving him with no choice. Yet, as it turns out, the dragons had been in the midst of escaping from something. The man points out that had Zek not engaged them, forcing them into a berserk state, the fight might have resulted in the city's destruction. But it is likely that no one would have died. Zek counters by mentioning the church, but the man immediately refutes his argument, stating that they heard the church had not ordered him to fight. As Zek protests, claiming it was an order, the man grabs him by the collar. However, Zek suddenly recalls that the priest had instructed him to either stop or divert the dragons, not to engage them directly. The realization strikes him hard and he begins to cry. The people, now furious, declare that the church never believed Zek could defeat the dragon and that they were fools for even thinking of it. The crowd turns against him, demanding that he leave and never return. Despite their rejection, Zek refuses to abandon Mill and the others. He repeatedly strikes the barrier imprisoning them until it finally shatters, freeing them. Determined, he makes his way to a room where the magic ball is located. There he calls for Romulus. As Zek prepares to apologize, Romulus dismisses it, stating that he does not blame him at all. Zek, confused, questions why Romulus is so forgiving when his actions have led to the deaths of thousands. Romulus calmly explains that those people died of their own accord and that Zek should not torment himself over it. Furthermore, he reveals that he made a promise to Ceres, which prevents him from blaming Zek. Observing Zek's reaction, Romulus quickly realizes that Ceres never told him anything. Previously, when Zek failed a quest that resulted in the deaths of 30 people, the priest confronted Ceres, demanding to know how he would take responsibility and why he had come alone. Ceres responded that one person was sufficient and that they had done everything they could. The priest, furious, berated him for his inability to even apologize after so many deaths. At this, Ceres grew angry, questioning who in the first place had ever wanted to fight the Demon King. He accused them of forcing the heroes into life-threatening missions only to blame them when things went wrong. His frustration reached a breaking point, and he declared his decision to quit their work as heroes altogether. Sensing the tension, Romulus asked Ceres what he wished to say. In response, Ceres confidently stated that if it were up to him, he would end the war within a month and easily kill the Demon King. Romulus, intrigued, challenged him to elaborate. Ceres then outlined a strategy, calling it all-out war. According to his plan, everyone would abandon their jobs and march straight to the Demon King's castle. Those who refused to participate would either be exiled or sentenced to death row. By doing so, rather than relying on a single hero's party, humanity as a whole would ensure victory. Romulus, alarmed, accused Ceres of being insane, pointing out that such a plan would destroy countless lives. However, Ceres countered that people had no issue forcing heroes into these deadly tasks while they continued their lives comfortably. He argued that if humanity as a whole was placed in the same situation for just a single month, they would undoubtedly wipe out the demons. Romulus hesitated, recalling that he had previously given Ceres full authority. Ceres then reminded him that if he truly intended to pass on the responsibility, he should follow through with it. Panicked, Romulus admitted that he understood they had been pushing everything onto the heroes, but he could not endorse such a drastic plan. Ceres pressed further, stating that if they refused to go through with it, they had no right to force responsibility onto the heroes, blaming them for deaths while living their own lives selfishly. The argument left Romulus with no further counterarguments. Back in the present, Zek processes everything Romulus has revealed. He had not known that Ceres had made such a decision. Romulus explains that while some bishops opposed Ceres' stance, they could not argue against his logic, which is why he does not blame the hero's party for anything. Overcome with emotion, Zek calls himself a fool for casting out the one person who truly understood him. He then, with great remorse, apologizes to Ceres. The scene shifts to Seo, who points out that now that their lives have settled, they should go to Kohane Springs. Misaki anticipates that Ceres will go wild again. Haruka believes this will be their opportunity, while Misaki admits that losing to Ceres is frustrating. Night after night, their pride as adult women prevents them from letting it go so easily. They then eagerly anticipate the trip, all excited to please Ceres well. The next day, while riding the carriage, Shizuko notes that Kohane is an exotic place, while Seo speculates that it might have been designed for people who were transmigrated or reincarnated. She also mentions that Kohane's specialty is black eggs. As they finally reach Kohane, anticipation fills the air. Ceres and his mommies arrive at Kohane, where they are greeted by two cat-mimicking girls at the entrance of the Kohane Grand Pavilion. The girls, with their playful and energetic demeanor, welcome him warmly. As they step inside, Shizuko takes in the sight of the building, finding it unusual. She has never seen anything quite like it. Ceres, on the other hand, starts to wonder if this is another creation of those who had been transmigrated from Japan. One of the cat girl guides takes them to their room, leading them up a staircase. As Ceres follows behind, he notices something shocking. The girl isn't wearing any undergarments. His face turns red as he struggles to find the words to tell her. Finally, he gathers the courage and, all flustered, points it out to her. The girl, unfazed, simply explains that in Kohen it is customary not to wear undergarments at home as it is part of their traditional attire. Shizuko, amused by Sera's embarrassment, teases him about his reaction. When they arrive at their room, they see the tatami mats they had heard so much about. Sera immediately recognizes that they closely resemble traditional Japanese tatami. The cat girl informs them that the grand open-air bath has been specially reserved for them and asks if they would like to see it. However, Sera decides that he would first like to visit the town. The girl then suggests that the women wear kimonos while sightseeing. This suggestion makes all the women blush at the thought. As they make their way into town, Sera finds it quite different from any place he has seen before. In particular, a spot known as the Black Eggs seems to be a notable meeting place. As he looks around, he suddenly hears someone calling his name. Turning around, he sees his mommies, Haruka and Shizuko, now dressed in kimonos. Both of them appear embarrassed, feeling that they are too old to be wearing such outfits, yet they are relieved that at least they were spared the addition of cat ears. Siam and Miss Guy, also in kimonos, voice their complaints about the lack of undergarments, feeling that it is too much for them. Sera's, unable to hold back his thoughts, compliments them all, saying they look amazing. Miss Guy, immediately flustered, shouts at him not to say such things, all while his nose begins to bleed. Haruka, on the other hand, takes it in stride, saying that as long as it makes Sera happy, she is fine with it. Now that they are together, Sera brings up the question of where they should go first, considering that this is their honeymoon. Shizuko expresses interest in seeing Kohen's famous lake. Seo mentions that she has heard of a shop that sells beautifully crafted marquetry boxes. Haruka insists that they must try the stone-baked pizzas, while Miss Guy wants to taste the kameshi. Despite it being their honeymoon, they seem to have split opinions on where to go. Sera's, unable to catch all the places mentioned, notices Seo picking up a marquetry box. The intricate patterns on the box captivate him almost as if they are enchanting. Wanting to do something for her, he decides to gift it to her. Seo, deeply touched by his gesture, expresses her gratitude. As they sit together, she turns to him and asks if he has ever given Mill a present before. Looks like Mommy is feeling a pang of jealousy over his past love. He recalls giving Mill a necklace, explaining that it was because she had been crying over not being chosen by Zect. Seo finds this incredibly kind of him and then presses further, asking him what exactly he said to her when he gave her the gift. She points out that there is no use in trying to hide it. Ceres reluctantly recalls his words. He had told Mill that he would always be there for her when she was alone. Seo, teasing him, suggests that it sounds as if he did something naughty with Mill. Ceres, flustered, hurriedly denies it, emphasizing that Mill is her daughter. However, Seo nonchalantly remarks that even if he had, it would not be a problem after all, he is an adult. Then, suddenly standing up, she provocatively asks if he would really be okay with doing such things with her, his mother. Ceres, his face turning red, blurts out that Seo is the best. This leads them into a kiss before Ceres quickly tells her that he will see her later at the inn and heads towards the lake, wanting to find Shizuko. When he arrives at the lake, he finds Shizuko gazing at the scenery. As he approaches, she turns to him and asks if something is wrong. Ceres, looking at her against the backdrop of the serene lake, feels that everything blends so perfectly that she looks especially beautiful. Shizuko, smiling, thanks him for his kind words and admits that she feels at ease in this place. She wonders if perhaps her ancestors had once visited here. As she walks along the shore, she suddenly notices an acorn and picks it up. Holding it in her hand, she becomes nostalgic, reminding Ceres of the time when he gave her an acorn necklace during their childhood. She reveals that she still treasures it even now. However, as she continues speaking, her mood suddenly shifts. She grows angry as she realizes something. She admits that she has started to feel hatred for Sector and contemplates whether she should just kill him. Ceres, alarmed, quickly asks what happened. With a horrifyingly sad expression, Shizuko tells him that when she was sold as a slave, all her belongings were discarded. That meant that everything he had given her was also lost. The pain in her voice is evident as she states that Sector is nothing more than a stranger to her now, so it wouldn't be a problem if he disappeared. Seeing how serious she is, Ceres, trying to comfort her, hurriedly promises to get her another gift. Just then, Shizuko spots something exciting, the duck boat. Her face lights up as she suggests they go for a ride. Once on the boat, the gentle breeze makes her visibly happy, and Ceres is relieved to see her mood improve. As they drift along, she excitedly points out a fish that just jumped from the water, momentarily forgetting herself. Realizing how animated she has become, she suddenly feels embarrassed for acting so young. Ceres reassures her, confirming that she is still young and beautiful. Shizuko, overwhelmed by emotion, confesses that because Ceres found her and freed her from prison, she's able to live happily now. Every day she feels so fulfilled. Even though she may be older, she still wants to continue making Sears happy. Before she can say more, the boat suddenly rocks, causing them to be pulled closer to each other. In that moment, Sears finds himself kissing his second mommy as well. Back at the inn, Haruka and Miss Guy both expressed their jealousy. Even though they had gone their separate ways during the day, Series still ended up getting too close with Seo and Shizuko. Series, caught in the middle, hurriedly apologizes, promising to make it up to them. Haruka, with a teasing smirk, tells him that they will wait, but he shouldn't get his hopes up too much. As night falls, the long-awaited bath reservation finally arrives. The group eagerly heads toward the private open-air bath. Seo, excited about the private setting, looks forward to the experience. As the girls and Series separate into their respective baths, Series enjoys the relaxing atmosphere. However, as he soaks in the warm water, he suddenly notices someone approaching. His relaxation vanishes when he realizes who it is. It's none other than his mommies. Flustered, he panics, wondering why they are in the men's bath. The realization soon dawns on them all. The baths are connected inside. Sears, his face burning red, is overwhelmed by the sight of his mothers wearing only mini skirts with no undergarments. The truth becomes clear. The people of the past truly did as they pleased in this place. The mommies decide to bathe together, and upon seeing Sears' flushed face, Haruka teases him, remarking that it looks like his blood is rushing to his head. Hesitantly, Sears admits that the bath clothes are somewhat see-through. Seo acknowledges that the fabric is indeed quite thin. Shizuko, with a hint of concern, notes that Sears has seen their bodies so often that he must be tired of them. Seo shares her own concern, wondering if they no longer excite him. Sears quickly reassures them, insisting that he has never grown tired of their bodies. He tries to maintain his focus, knowing that if he doesn't, he might end up with a nosebleed. Haruka playfully calls him an oddball, while Shizuko finds him amusing, joking that no one would be turned on by an old woman's body. However, they all feel reassured, believing that Sears must truly love them. Meanwhile, Sears struggles to calm himself, reminding his dragon that it is not yet time to wake up. He knows that if he loses control now, he might turn into a sex-crazed man. For now, he tells himself to stay composed as they are merely enjoying the hot springs. Shizuko and Haruka move closer to him, playfully suggesting that they should work hard that night and ensure they squeeze him dry. This teasing is enough to overwhelm Series, causing him to have a nosebleed. The scene shifts to Misaki, who sits with Series resting on her lap. She gently asks if he is awake. Series, regaining consciousness, asks what happened. Misaki explains that too much blood rushed through his brain, causing him to lose consciousness, so they brought him here. She then informs him that dinner is ready. Sears finds it amusing that they even crafted the bowls and pots. He is particularly delighted to see that the meal is miso soup, marveling at the fact that he gets to enjoy Japanese food in another world. Meanwhile, Haruka sips her drink, commenting on its strange taste. Sears notices that she is drinking Japanese sake and wonders if she is already tipsy. As he observes her, he realizes that her yukata is slightly coming undone. Shizuko catches him stealing glances at their chests and teases him, pointing out that he has been looking for quite some time. The women jokingly ask if he wants to see more, confident that they can compete with younger women. Sears admits that he doesn't want to see but declares that he will wait until nighttime. Their conversation is interrupted when the cat guide reacts with jealousy, remarking that they are getting along quite well. That night, the women each take turns pleasing Sears, and after exhausting him, they watch over him as he drifts into sleep. Stepping outside, they celebrate with drinks, feeling satisfied that they achieved their goal. Seo proudly states that they even learn new techniques to make Sears feel good. Flustered, Haruka scolds her for saying such things so openly. They all acknowledge that Sears was excited about the trip. Misaki, however, notes that with such a strong sex drive, it might be difficult for just the four of them to keep up with him. Shizuko, still eager, expresses her determination to continue satisfying Sears. Misaki reassures her, certain that Sears loves them deeply. Seo, feeling confident as a woman, appreciates being cherished by him. The moment reminds her of her younger days, while Haruka, reminiscing, notes that she was once like an older sister to Series. Seeing him grow into such a remarkable man fills her with pride. They all agree that he makes them happy, and they are determined to protect him no matter what. Misaki then turns to Shizuko and questions whether she is exposing too much skin. Shizuko dismisses the concern, reasoning that there is no one around to see. Haruka, feeling overheated, also adjusts her clothing. Misaki warns them to act more modestly, cautioning that Sears might start to dislike them if they become too careless. However, Sears remains in deep sleep, seemingly content. The next day, while traveling their royal carriage, the king speaks with the princess about the rumored demon slayer boy. He remarks that the young man seems to have a preference for older women. He then notes that all four of Sears' partners are older than the princess. The princess, who is 28, begins to worry. She wonders if Ceres would ever accept a woman who has already given birth. Later in town, Ceres and his companions notice a unicorn-drawn carriage, an exclusive symbol of the Zamoran royal family. Misaki observes that Zamora's territory is in Kohen, leading her to speculate that the royals might be here for leisure. However, Haruka remains doubtful. Shizuko senses that they likely have business with them. Ceres, wary of potential trouble, stays on guard. The carriage soon comes to a stop and the king steps outside. Addressing Ceres directly, he asks if he is indeed Lord Ceres. Ceres confirms his identity. The king introduces himself as Zamar VI, ruler of Zamar. He then bestows upon Ceres the title of hero and proceeds to make a formal request. Ceres is curious about both things the king has proposed to him. He looks at the princess, realizing that she is Marian. Marian greets them casually, saying it has been a long time. Shizuko bows to Marian in greeting, asking how she has been. Ceres ponders whether they are acquaintances with Marian. The king finally asks if Ceres would mind accompanying them. Ceres knows he cannot refuse. At the villa, the king points out that he holds Ceres in high regard. Ceres humbly acknowledges this. He has only met the king once before when he first set out on his journey with the hero's party. After that, he had periodically proposed plans, but that was the extent of their relationship. This is the first time they are having a real conversation. The king mentions that the plan Ceres had written on behalf of the hero's party was incredibly worthy of a seasoned civil servant. He praises Ceres further, adding that he has hunted over 100 dragons, including superior species, across the world. Even among the nobility, many refer to him as the protector of the kingdom. The king finds it hard to comprehend why the hero's party would expel such a skilled man. Mocking their decision, he remarks on what a waste it was. The king then states that they no longer have any need for braves. While they initially supported them, the time has come to move on. Dobell promotes the idea that Ceres should be bestowed with the title of hero. The title of hero is not tied to a specific job, but is instead granted to those who make extraordinary contributions to the country, regardless of their profession. In Zomar, it would grant Ceres the authority to seek direct assistance from nobles, vassals, or even the king himself. Ceres finds this exceptional. The title seems to extend even beyond the authority of a brave. The king clarifies that the decision is not his alone, but it is supported by the agreement of nobles across the world. Ceres considers that this might cause trouble later, but refusing now would mean he could no longer stay in the country. He speaks aloud, expressing his honor and willingness to accept the title. The king draws his sword and bestows upon Ceres the title of hero. Depending on his performance, the king even considers granting him a noble title and the hand of a princess in marriage. The mention of marriage shocks Ceres. He knows that the king has two daughters, Marianne, who is already married to the kingdom of Balta, and the younger princess Marin. Ceres then questions whether Marin is still betrothed to Zekt after he slayed the demon king. The king informs him that the princess he would be given, if his performance is good, will be Marianne. After all, the kingdom of Balta has been destroyed. The king adds that besides this, he is aware of Ceres' taste in women. Ceres realizes that this explains why Marianne is here with the king. If things go south, he might end up bound to royalty and forced to say goodbye to his peaceful life. The king looks forward to Ceres' future exploits and reminds him that he has a favor to ask. He explains that a dragon-like creature has taken residence near Kohen. Since it is a resort town, they wish to avoid drawing too much attention. The king wants Ceres to slay it. Ceres thinks that if he simply talks to the dragon and convinces it to leave, the problem will be solved. He agrees to take on the task. However, this was supposed to be his honeymoon. At the cave, Ceres tells his mommies that he was only planning to talk to the dragon, so there was no need for them to come. But mommies insist that they did not want him to go alone, as there could be other monsters in the area. As if on cue, a group of goblins rushes toward them. The strong women quickly dispatch them. Haruka points out that being a hero is a huge responsibility. She notes that she does not believe anyone has received the title in years. Seiba comments that while braves are born, the title of hero is given based on one's accomplishments and character. She acknowledges that it is good that the king recognizes Ceres' hard work, but his true intentions lie in forming a specialized force to protect the kingdom. Shizuko remarks that they will need a backer in the future, but questions why they should settle in Zamar. Haruka observes that now that Ceres is no longer part of the hero's party, many people will try to recruit him. Normally, just being an S-rank adventurer is enough to attract countless offers. Adding the titles of Demon Slayer and Hero only increases the interest. Ceres can tell that his mommies are well informed. Haruka reveals that they have already received numerous offers themselves, as they too are S-rank adventurers. Seigo points out that most countries will try to lure them in with wealth or even romantic prospects. All they can do for now is watch. Haruka reminisces that her most enjoyable adventures were back when they were C-rank, as they were still young and free. Ceres decides to wait and observe for now. If he had not accomplished anything, the king would not have given him the title of hero or the princess's hand in marriage. However, he now regrets willingly taking on this mission. He then asks Shizuko about her relationship with Marion. Shizuko explains that they had an adventurer-client relationship, but that was years ago. When demons invaded Balta, the country Marion had been married into, she and her companions had already retired from adventuring. However, when the king of Zomar assigned them a mission to rescue Marion, they accepted it. The scene shifts to that time. The four of them were hiding in the bushes, observing the situation. Haruka asked if they should charge in from the front, but there were too many demons. Sato focused on the demon commander. They asked Sayo if he could take it that far. Haruka cast a protective spell and rushed toward the demon, slashing it down. Before the commander could react, Sayo appeared from behind, pressing a knife to his neck. Haruka then demanded that the demons clear a path to the mansion or their commander would be killed. The demons murmured among themselves before their commander ordered them to comply, saying that there was no chance of any survivors inside. Haruka entered the mansion, making her way to Marianne's room. She called out, asking if Marianne was there and still alive. After a moment of silence, Marianne hesitantly emerged from a cupboard. The scene shifts again to all the demons being slain while the girls remain inside with Marianne. They ask her why they were attacked. Marianne explains that a maid told her to hide inside the closet. She then asks if there were any other survivors. Sadly, they inform her that they had searched but found no one else. Marianne's hands begin to tremble as she breaks down in tears, mourning the loss of her husband and son. Returning to the present, Shizuko tells Ceres that they met Marianne once more when they returned for their reward. They had tea together, and that was the extent of their relationship. She then adds that if Ceres is planning to marry Marianne, they will happily welcome her. Ceres retorts that he has not thought that far ahead, and at this moment is simply trying to focus on eating. Ceres then informs them that he will talk to the dragon, and they will leave together. Sayo comments that Ceres' ability is quite strange. Using it, he can even turn creatures into his pets. However, Ceres still does not fully understand the extent of his own powers. The creature before them does not seem like a dragon. Ceres attempts to communicate with it, but it refuses to listen. With no other choice, the women draw their weapons, ready to fight.